A sun-drenched clearing just became a gold mine. Ultra-rare silver slimes spawned out of nowhere while two rookies watched from the shadows. One whispered, "Chill, let them despawn," but his partner, "Zero, chill." He ignored the warning and charged straight into the danger zone. "Yo, stop," the teammate screamed, trying to pull him back, but the guy was already locked in. He closed the distance on those mobs with insane speed. Boom! A critical hit shattered the core instantly. The guy became a blur, his blade dancing left and right in a deadly rhythm. He speed ran the entire encounter, shredding the silver slimes in seconds. The field was wiped clean. Total domination. Green flames erupted from the stranger's eyes. System alert. Player Takahashi Yukito just secured S-rank loot. We're talking silver slime armor, gauntlets, and boots, the full legendary set. And he had an audience. A guy in a green hoodie watched, stunned. He got the drops and the bonus XP from that crit hoodie guy, muttered. That RNG is actually broken. His buddy was basically a walking cheat code. The hero himself stared at his hands, unable to process that he actually snagged 3 pieces of S-tier gear. It felt like a glitch. Too good to be true. Like the universe was finally paying him back for every nightmare he endured in his past life. Let's rewind to his previous save file. Bronze rank scrub Takahashi Yukito. He was grinding on the first floor of the Tokyo dungeon. Suddenly, panic rippled through the party as someone flashed a phone screen. They breached the surface. The news was terrifying. Monsters were invading the city. Outside was a death trap. One guy yelled, "We gotta dive deeper to survive." But the squad was split. Half of them were terrified. The surface mobs would flank them from behind. Our hero turned to an old-timer nearby, begging him to run. "Forget the slime grind, old man. We have to move." He grabbed the grandfather's shoulder, desperate, but the old man swatted his hand away. He just kept walking, marching straight toward the slimes like he was in a trance. The rest of the party didn't bother stopping him. They figured the old guy had lost his mind. Someone shoved him aside and the frail man crumbled, losing his balance. He hit the dirt hood, falling back to reveal white hair. Decades of grinding flew by. The world had evolved since the first hunters emerged. The system changed. Now, you only leveled up by stealing life from monsters. Kill or stay stagnant. And when you level, your stats shift. All the young man wanted was 5 measly strength points, just a +5 boost. While others got flashy magic and OP skills, this was his reality. The old man struggled to his feet and pulled up his status window. Takahashi Yukito, level 98. Strength, speed, stamina, all stuck at 5. Agility at 4, magic at 3, resistance, a pathetic 2. He had survived, hell, seen everything, and grinded for a lifetime. He farmed weak mobs because that was all he could handle. It took forever to hit level 98. Nobody else played the game this way. He was the only player, stubborn enough to reach this level with trash stats. That day, fueled by adrenaline, the old-timer blitzed the slime horde. He swung so hard his rusty sword snapped in 2, but he didn't care. Max level is 99. One more kill, one more level, and everything changes. Just a few more XP, and the dream becomes reality. With no weapon, he lunged at the silver slimes, desperate for those final points. He went full berserker mode. He had to cap out right now. Surely his stats were just lagging, waiting for the max level unlock. He tackled a massive slime, a translucent giant with a glowing core. Since his blade was dust, the old man tore into the monster with his bare teeth. Savage, violent, and then, the notification chimed. Takahashi Yukito level cap reached. Congratulations! He froze. He couldn't believe it. The moment he had sacrificed his entire life for had arrived. Finally, the payoff. He checked his stats. Strength increased by 1. The status board updated. Level 99. Strength 6. Are you kidding me? He collapsed. Legs gave out. Was that it? A lifetime of suffering for 1 point. Yukito was broken. No reward, just emptiness. He couldn't even stand up. From the shadows, high-level monsters were closing in on the clearing. A wasted life. Everyone had mocked him, laughed at his grind. He couldn't even save his own mother with this weak power. His life played back like a sad movie reel. This was the bad ending. Tears streamed down his face. Regret consumed him. Takahashi Yukito had 0 fight left. 1 more second, and his game is over for good. A massive demon paw descended to crush his frail body. Participant deceased. But then, a system error occurred in file Takahashi. Characterization system failure. The system initiated an emergency rollback and restoration protocol. Thump thump, his heart restarted. Unlocking hidden parameters. Compensation bonus applied. Unique stat points acquired plus 9,999. His eyes snapped open, vision blurring as the power flooded in. A cheerful voice snapped him back to reality. He blinked, finding a beaming girl standing right in front of him, welcoming adventurer Takahashi to the fold. The green-eyed hero stood there totally paralyzed. Is this for real? He scanned the room looking for a glitch in the matrix, until the girl tilted her head. Sir, are you okay? Takahashi shook off the shock, mumbling a quick thanks for the pendant she handed him. A few moments later, he found a quiet corner to process the chaos in his head. What the hell is actually going on? He stared intensely at his smartphone screen, cold sweat trickling down his neck. The date. If he wasn't tripping, this was the exact day he first registered at the guild. Yukito's mind raced. He vividly remembered dying, and right before the end, seeing a notification about bonus stats. He swiped open his status window. Everything looked exactly like the old days. But then, wait, something caught his eye. His eyes practically popped out of his skull. What is this? A brand new stat column glowing right there. Luck. A luck stat. That definitely wasn't part of his kit before. Was this some kind of hidden parameter from his previous life? Yeah, right. I seriously doubt that. Takahashi Yukito couldn't wrap his head around it. He was a guy with a 70-year streak of pure failure. He touched his face, feeling how young he was. Again, this is insane. But hey, perfect time to test out this new stat on a slime hunt. Within minutes, the hero stepped into the Tokyo dungeon first floor, imperishable footprints. Boom. Target acquired instantly. It was like the slime was literally waiting for him in the tall grass. Suddenly catch movement in his peripheral vision. He whipped around. When his brain processed what he was seeing, his jaw hit the floor. A silver slime. We're talking ultra-rare spawn rates here. He'd seen one maybe once in his entire past life. Usually these things bolt. The second they spot a hunter, they drop an insane amount of XP. But good luck catching one. Yukito gripped his hilt. One dash, one slash, and you're mine. He launched himself forward, closing the gap when something flashed. Thwack. An arrow buried itself in the dirt inches from his boot. A muffled sorry echoed from somewhere. Takahashi gritted his teeth. You absolute moron, a noise like that. Should have sent the silver slime packing. But it didn't move. Instead, the timid monster started glowing with aggression. Unbelievable. The slime snapped out of its daze and charged straight at him. Yukito braced himself for the impact. His sword collided head-on with the silver blur. The tip pierced straight through to the core. The monster couldn't handle the crit and shattered into digital dust. That single win triggered an instant level up. But his cheap sword snapped in half. These silver freaks are tanky. Great. Now he needs a new weapon. But then a glimmer in the grass caught his attention. No way. S-rank loot. A pristine silver sword. The hero grinned. Okay, this is a legendary start. He scooped up the large silver slime sword. Stats, massive attack boost, 30% miss rate. Because of the slime's slippery nature. Yukito didn't care. He was about to go on a rampage. He scanned the area and froze. His heart skipped a beat. 4. There were 4 silver slimes just chilling in the next clearing. This wasn't just luck. This was broken. He pinched himself to make sure he wasn't dreaming. Suddenly, all 4 monsters aggroed at once, flying straight at his face. They were out for blood. No running now, it's fighting time. Knowing his new sword had accuracy issues, Yukito knew he couldn't just spray and pray, or take them all out at once. He bobbed and weaved, landing critical hits one after another. He cleared the mob in minutes. The luck stat is real. Another critical hit and boom, magnificent armor drops on the grass. It's actually working. He wiped the floor with them. For the next hour, he was on a roll. Yukito encountered 10 silver slimes in total. Every single kill dropped rare loot. There was no denying it anymore. This luck stat was a cheat code. He stared at his haul, totally buzzing. This changes everything. Exhausted but ecstatic, the adventurer collapsed onto the grass, soaking in the victory. He stared up at the dungeon ceiling. With this kind of power, he thought, I can actually be someone. Maybe he could finally give his family the life they deserved. His sick mom needed treatment. His little sister needed support. He reached his hand toward the sky, visualizing the future he was going to build for them. Suddenly he sat up, bolt upright. It hit him. He had a home to go back to. After 70 years of wandering and loneliness, he had a second chance. He scrambled to his feet. He needed to be there. Now, apartment 203. The nameplate read Takahashi. His hands were trembling uncontrollably as he reached for the doorknob. Get it together, man. Why was his heart pounding like this? He let out a sharp, shaky breath. Heart pounding like a drum against his ribs, Yukito finally reached for the door handle. But before he could even touch it, the door swung open. Boom. He was face to face with his little sister. She had been waiting right there. And the look on her face, pure, unadulterated joy. Yukito didn't hesitate. He practically tackled Nozomi into a bear hug. She stiffened, totally confused by the sudden affection. What is up with you? She laughed, trying to squiggle free. Is this for a TikTok or something? But he refused to let go, squeezing her tighter. Not this time. No one was ever laying a finger on his family again. They were his world. Once the emotions settled, he sat her down and spilled the tea on everything that went down. Nozomi's jaw hit the floor. Wait, can we actually save mom with this stuff? Yukito grinned. You bet. Just watch me. The next morning, he was on a mission, offloading all the rare loot he had snagged in the dungeon. Flush with cash from the sales, he headed straight for the auction house. He had one specific target in mind. He dropped a cool 10 million on a single lot, securing a top-tier high-grade healing potion. Next, stop the hospital. Yukito and Nozomi marched down the hallway toward their mom's room, adrenaline pumping. A soft voice called, "Come in," and they pushed the door open. Mom's face instantly lit up seeing her babies walk in. "How are my two favorite people?" "Forget us, Mom. How are you?" Yukito deflected. Beside him, Nozomi started unboxing some treats. She showed off the expensive snacks, but Mom frowned. "You shouldn't be wasting money on me. You two need to eat properly." "Mom, those days are over," Yukito assured her confidently. Then Nozomi chimed in, "Plus, we have a surprise." Mom looked confused. "A surprise?" Yukito stepped forward. "Okay, this is gonna sound crazy, but I need you to drink this." He presented the glowing vial. Nozomi beamed, "Big bro crushed it in the dungeon, and bought this for you." Mom was stunned. He was a rookie adventurer. This kind of cash didn't make sense. "How could you possibly afford this?" she stammered. Yukito shrugged it off. "Got lucky, Mom. Dungeons are basically a lottery." He nudged the bottle closer to her. "Just drink it. Trust me." She didn't fight him on it. She popped the cork and downed the glowing liquid in one go. Boom. Magic time. A soft light enveloped her body while the siblings watched, holding their breath. The tension was palpable. Suddenly, Mom exhaled, looking like a massive weight had just vanished from her chest. She took a deep, clean breath. Yukito's shoulders dropped. It worked. Nozomi cheered. "You did it, bro." Then Mom grimaced. "Ugh, that tasted absolutely awful." Yukito laughed and handed her a sweet pastry to wash away the bitter aftertaste. The doctor's report was a miracle. Symptoms gone, disease progression completely halted. After a quick stint in rehab, she was discharged. Finally, the squad was back together under one roof. It felt surreal. A real family dinner at home for the first time in forever. While washing up later, she sighed happily. There really is no place like home. Nozomi was beaming, but Yukito's expression darkened. He wasn't satisfied. Nozomi caught his look. "What's wrong?" He dropped the bomb. "The potion. It's just a band-aid. It won't cure her completely." Nozomi's smile vanished. "Then what do? "We need the real deal," Yukito said intensely. "A true legendary elixir." "Wait," she asked. "Like that item on the news, the one the top-ranked hunter found. The one on floor 50 that money can't even buy." She knew exactly how rare that was. "Exactly," Yukito nodded. "And that is my target." It was a unique item, bound to the finder. No trading, no selling. A hidden reward you can snag without even killing the boss. Nozomi hesitated. "So we have to find it ourselves." She looked worried. "But, can you actually survive that deep?" "Theoretically," he mused. "No. It's a suicide mission. I'd be dead meat." Nozomi slumped. "So, it's impossible." Yukito smirked. "I said theoretically." Luck wasn't the only thing on his side. He had the ultimate cheat code memories from his past life, and he remembered everything. Rumor has it, this miracle elixir drops on the higher floors, but there's a loophole. The boss guarding floor 20, the ancient golem. Its unique drop is exactly the cure they need. The catch. The spawn rate for this boss is astronomically low. Snagging a legendary item from a ghost of a boss, that is purely a game of Russian roulette, our hero mused. "In my past life, I only heard of this drop happening once, but this time around, the kid was convinced that with his current luck stat, everything would align perfectly. He was going to secure that elixir and save his mom no matter what." His sister, however, caught that shifty look in his eye. Yukito chuckled. "Do I really look that sketchy?" She shot him a wink. She knew her brother was capable of the impossible. Her blind faith lit a fire under him. Nothing hits harder than knowing your family is in your corner. But before diving into the abyss, he needed to prep. Nozomi looked puzzled by the sudden shift in vibe. Prepare how the hero knew there was always a workaround. Yukito strode over to the dresser. Lingering on their framed family portrait, it was time to gear up for a deep dungeon dive. First up, the loadout. He equips the silver slime sword. Perk, massive attack power boost. The drawback, a 30% whiff rate because the blade wiggles like jelly. Then there's the silver slime tier. That accessory grants a 33% chance to tank incoming damage. While he packed, his sister studied his moves. She pressed him. "You're hitting the road already." The hero gave a firm nod. "Going in like that, don't warriors usually rock heavy plate mail?" He agreed but broke down the harsh reality. His stats were trash. He literally lacked the strength to haul heavy gear. The status window doesn't lie. He realized he was all in on luck. With his stats, armor wasn't an option. It was just him and the wobbly sword. Yukito noted that leveling up had unlocked some serious firepower. Take the mighty layered lunge, for instance. A combat skill with a 30% shot at landing 3 critical hits instantly. Nozomi chimed in. "Need to boost your specs. Hit the 5th floor." Yukito instantly recalled the zone Alice's Wreath. The mobs there drop unique loot, specifically magic fruit. It's a stat-boosting superfood. His sister begged him to stay safe no matter the cost. She handed him a packed lunch for the journey. Even though he'd be gorging on magical fruit, he genuinely appreciated the gesture. A notification popped up, one package acquired. The hero kicked the door open and stepped out. The grind starts now. The forest was a nightmare of dark hues, glowing purple mushrooms, and carnivorous flora snacking on bugs. After a trek, he hit the 5th floor, the infamous Alice's Wreath. It is a botanical maze teeming with plant-type monsters. One wrong turn and you are gone. But since it is a low-tier zone, other adventurers had already picked it clean. Yukito figured, as long as he stuck to the map, it would be a walk in the park. He pushed deeper into the woods. Trusting his gut, he instantly clocked a nest of ants monsters mimicking humanoid trees. He knew their playbook. They use camouflage to ambush prey. That is why they look like timber. He had to admit the disguise was top tier. But look closer. Real leaves have veins. These didn't. He also spotted the giveaway. The roots were twisted in unnatural directions. Those weren't roots. They were legs, used to scuttle through the forest. Suddenly, red eyes snapped open on the bark. The guy grinned. Got him. A critical hit flashed. The wooden beast was sliced clean in two. Yukito realized that if he anticipated the spawn, it was game over for them. A second later, his reward materialized. A magic fruit dropped on the grass. He snatched it up and took a crunch. Tasted faintly of pear mixed with apple. But flavor wasn't the point here. Check the status screen. Boom. His stats spiked thanks to the fruit. The gains were small, but they stacked. Even a weakling could become a god with enough grinding. Let the massacre begin. He fought, he feasted. Fight, eat, repeat. By the end of the day, he was sick of the taste. He took a breather to scarf down his sister's home cooking. Post-lunch, it was time to verify. If he had hit his cap. Yukito smirked. He had finally ascended to the intermediate combat level. That's a wrap, he decided. Time to bail. But just then, a chill ran down his spine. He spun around, hand on hilt. Who's there? A voice sneered from the shadows. Hey, don't hog all the loot. Looks like someone needs a lesson in dungeon etiquette. Two thugs stepped into the light, one flashing a gold-toothed grin, and the other guy sporting a flashy ring. Yukito didn't hesitate. I'm not seeing any pro badges. You two just... The type of vultures who get fat feeding off the weak, the short guy sneered bullseye. And we found a rich, spoiled brat, who thinks fancy gear makes him a hero. Ring guy chimed in. Look kid, don't make this messy. Hand it over nice and easy. And maybe you walk away breathing. But our hero made short work of these goons, Yukito thought. That was a little too close. But the plan executed perfectly. The enemy triggered Beasting Lunge, a nasty level 25 ult. Basically, the thug outclassed him in raw stats. That move has auto-aim dodging is literally impossible, but the skill gets nerfed by 30% on impact. Thanks to his armor soaked in the rare tears of a silver slime, the hero tanked the hit like a boss. Long story short, he shrugged off 70% of the damage. If luck wasn't on his side, Yukito would have a gaping hole in his gut right now. The injured thug's partner stammered. No way. Yamada got one-shotted. The hero offered him a way out, surrender now, and keep your life. But this guy wasn't folding that easily. He barked, don't sleep on me, kid. A melee fighter is dead meat at this range, Yukito retorted. True, I can't touch you from here. The bandit smirked. Did the newbie just give up? Not a chance. Yukito ripped open a portal and jammed his hand inside. In a flash, he dragged out a bizarre artifact. Time to dip into the inventory. It was a staff. Looking like a unicorn threw up rainbows on it. The ugly bandit cracked up. His own weapon looked way more lethal. A proper magical staff. He figured the rookie was clueless. Yukito swung his inventory. Substance of absurdity. He'd looted this chaotic item after soloing the Baron Ant. The opponent grilled him with a smile, thinking he was facing a total amateur. The substance of absurdity is a meme item. It's unstable trash that triggers RNG spells. The odds of rolling something useful, basically zero. There is a 40% chance it fizzles out, 30% chance of weak sparks, 20% for a random buff or debuff, and a microscopic 9% shot at a mid-tier spell. Even hitting that 30% weak spell bracket would be a miracle. Practically speaking, aiming for a specific attack was impossible. Yukito is literally playing the magic lottery right now. The bandit launched a fireball, a solid medium-level attack. Plus, even if the kid hits that 9% jackpot, the bandit's stats and gear would still overpower him. With his mage gear plus 50 bonus, the caster was convinced the W was already in the bag. The outlaw mused. Beginner's luck isn't going to save you from this. He aimed the fireball right at Yukito's face. The hero stood like a statue. He stared down the flaming death hurtling toward him without flinching. He muttered, finally, it's waking up. He winked. He was down to just this crazy staff, but it still had one trick left. The substance of absurdity procced. And it wasn't a dud. It felt like a volcano just detonated in the living room. Yukito's expression was stone cold as he pointed the staff at the enemy. An inferno erupted, vaporizing everything in its path. The visual was cinematic perfection. One more second and this entire forest gets deleted. The mage froze, watching his puny fire circle get swallowed whole by the hero's counterattack. He clutched his head in disbelief. How is this rookie spamming a god-tier meteor spell? The drop rate for that is 0.05%. Impending doom was closing in fast. The sky itself was on fire. The mage was trembling. He tried to cope with reality. It's gotta be an illusion, right? Suddenly, the smell of burning hair hit his nose. The heat was straight from hell. The mage begged the rookie for mercy. The bandit was paralyzed with fear. He shrieked like a banshee, literally wetting himself in terror. But the hero didn't let up, until the entire zone was turned into charcoal. The arrogant mage was reduced to a sobbing mess. The sheer force of the magic shattered. The artifact Yukito looted from the ant. The young man brought the smoking broken staff up close to inspect the damage. He shrugged and tossed it aside like trash. Yukito knew he used up a lifetime of luck, and he was totally cool with that. He scanned the battlefield, taking it all in. Even he looked a little shook by the devastation. Yukito thought, leaving these two psychos here is asking for trouble. He decided to drag the trash out to the curb. First step, immobilize. After trussing up both bandits like turkeys, he dusted his hands off. Yukito headed for the stairs. Mission complete. He dragged the unconscious loot bags behind him. The hero strolled home. It felt exactly like logging out after a long dungeon raid in an RPG. He handed the villains over to the cops. By the time the interrogation wrapped up, the sun had already dipped below the horizon. Adrenaline faded, leaving Yukito totally drained. He couldn't crash yet, though. One last pit stop to make. Our boy rolled up to the guild office. He hit the reception desk, apologizing for practically ghosting them lately. Had some complications, he shrugged. The receptionist flashed a knowing smile. You must be Mr. Takahashi Yukito, right? The cops had already spilled the tea on his recent exploits. She beamed at him. Congrats on that massive W out there. As a reward, you've been bumped up to silver rank. Yukito froze. Hold up. That had to be a glitch in the system. He barely did anything. Silver isn't a participation trophy. Even the prodigies usually grind for at least 3 years to get there. You gotta farm rare loot and clap countless monsters to even be considered. Basically, you need to bring serious value to the guild. But the girl just shook her head. No mistake here, sir. You bagged 2 members of the Crimson Hands. That is not a small-time crew. Yukito blinked. So farming XP from those lowlives was enough to skip straight to silver. You put in the work, she insisted. Those 2 thugs, their power levels were easily on par with silver-ranked adventurers. He went cold. Those guys were that strong. If he hadn't had insane RNG on his side, he would have been toast. Yukito gripped the silver pendant, still skeptical. I really just got lucky. She chuckled. There you go again. That humility looks good on a silver rank. We can't wait to see you dominate the lower dungeon floors. Access is rank gated. Bronzes cap out at floor 10, but silvers, you're cleared all the way down to floor 30. Gold ranks have 0 restrictions. Yukito clasped the silver chain around his neck, feeling the weight of it. His eyes were set on at least floor 20. I've got faith in you, the worker encouraged. But listen, it's a grind down there. The guild strongly advises against running those floors solo. It can get lethal fast. Yukito thanked her for the heads up, spun around, and headed for the door. The beauty watched him leave with a lingering gaze. Yukito smirked to himself. I leveled up way faster than I expected. Honestly, running into those bandits was pure luck too. Suddenly, a voice cut through his thoughts. An elderly gent in a 3-piece suit and top hat stood there. Excuse me, young man, could I steal a minute of your time? Yukito paused. He gave the old-timer his attention. You're the adventurer who took down those criminals, correct? The stranger asked. Yamada Jinbei, thief-murderer, age 20, height 180 centimeters, bounty 1 million yen. Hashimoto Hiroshi, thief-murderer, age 30, height 150 centimeters, bounty 1 million yen. Yeah, they jumped me, Yukito confirmed. The brim of the old man's hat shadowed his expression. Without warning, the gentleman seized Yukito's hand, shaking it violently. Thank you. Yukito stood there totally bewildered. While he tried to process the scene, the old man marched to the bounty board and ripped down the mugs of those 2 scumbags. They murdered my son, he cried out. The police were useless, couldn't get near them. But you caught them. The man was fighting back, a flood of tears. Yukito softened. It's okay. I was just doing my job as an adventurer. The elder bowed deeply, radiating pure gratitude. Seeing such a dignified man bow to him, it hit Yukito right in the feels. Finally, the stranger wept, I can bring peace to my son's grave. Yukito watched him, thoughts racing. I don't think anyone in my past life ever looked at me like that. He stared at his hands. Hearing that gratitude, it hit different. Speaking of the past life, if nothing changes, it's game over for this world. If history repeats itself, the apocalypse hits when he's an old man. He frowned. Can I really just chill, knowing everyone is going to die? He shook his head, snapping out of it. No, stop tripping, you clown. You're way too weak to play hero for the whole planet. He grabbed his head, forcing his emotions to chill. Priority 1, save mom. Then worry about the apocalypse. That's the only mission that matters right now. Meanwhile, deep in a dungeon, lit only by flickering torches. A voice roared in anger. A kerosene lamp cast eerie shadows over a stone slab covered in daggers of every shape and size. A man paced the room absolutely fuming. He slammed his fist onto the makeshift table. How could Yamada and Hashimoto get clapped by some nobody? If the rest of the crew starts dropping like flies, I won't have the cash to pay the tax to Gramilla. He snatched up a dagger, his eyes locking onto a newspaper spread on the table. Takahashi Yukito's face stared back at him from a photo. With a snarl, the bandit drove the blade straight into the young hero's face. I swear to God, you're dead meat, he screams before taking a deep breath. Chill. He needs to play this smart, not angry. This kid ain't basic. If he soloed Yamada and Hashimoto by himself, Yukito's power level is legit scary. But raw muscle doesn't matter against a solid scheme. Bro's luck just hit zero the second the Crimson Hands boss put a target on his back. Fast forward a bit. Our hero blazes through the levels, hitting the 15th floor of the dungeon in record time. He stands on the jagged plains, taking in the view. Welcome to the peak of the lonely mountain of death. It's a nightmare maze of tight choke points and treacherous drops. Total death trap terrain. Squads struggle to clear this mess, which Yukito notices immediately. It's the perfect spot to grind low-key without drawing heat, which explains why it's crawling with criminals. Bam! The hero's blade smashes into the rock face with earth-shattering force. That impact echoes turning heads. But he doesn't care. This is the ultimate playground for a lone wolf. The mission, power level until he unlocks every skill needed to crush the 20th floor. Yukito grips his steel, locking eyes with a massive avian beast circling above. He tried farming silver slimes, but bro went so hard he literally despawned them. Extinction event style. Change of plans. Anything breathing gets deleted. It's grinding time, baby. Let's get this bread. Takahashi tears a path through the wilderness, dropping mobs left and right. Giant bird down, armored armadillo wrecked, cyclops freaks and a mega bear toast. He scoops up the loot, bows, swords, gloves, the works, but he's clueless about the shadow watching him. The Crimson Hands boss is running full analytics on his prey. Solo player wielding that massive silver slime greatsword, zero armor. No doubt about it, Takahashi Yukito is an absolute unit. The boss fumes. The audacity of this punk invading his turf, but he forces himself to chill, not the time to aggro yet. Patience is key. The bandit camps behind the boulders all day, tracking his victim's every move. Takahashi finally takes a breather, and that's when a twisted light bulb goes off in the stalker's head. He realizes he doesn't even need to get his hands dirty. The bandit scrambles away, grinning. This is his domain. On floor 15, he's the dungeon master. Dungeons have ecosystems, just like nature, and the boss knows exactly how to hack the food chain. Wipe out the apex predators, and chaos follows. Time to execute the master plan. He tweaks the environment to boost the loot tables, triggering a frenzy. Thanks to him, the monster spawn rate is about to go exponential. Once that ecological pyramid crumbles, the swarm will be unstoppable. After a night in his hideout, the Crimson Hands leader wakes up. It's showtime. The narrative: Takahashi Yukito had a tragic accident. Just another adventurer fed to the dungeon meat grinder. A standard PvE death won't raise any red flags with the community. The guy smirks. Everything is falling perfectly into place. He pats the pouch containing his insect repellent. Just one final move to checkmate. He signals the swarm, directing the predatory insects straight toward that moron Yukito. Devour him, he thinks. Don't even leave the bones. He's loving this. Meanwhile, Takahashi is blissfully unaware, racking up XP on a wild boar. He drops the beast, then freezes. He hears something. A buzzing sound builds into a roar, getting louder by the second. Suddenly, the sky goes pitch black. The hero stares up, trying to process the living cloud blotting out the sun. Deadly cicadas. Thousands of them. Takahashi realizes instantly he can't solo a swarm this massive. Tactical retreat. His brain screams, one thing, I need a party right now. Where the hell do players hang out? Hard to think when a buzzsaw cloud is chasing you. Then it clicks. In his past life, he heard rumors of a supply base on this floor. A stronghold built to secure the lonely mountain. It's supposed to be hidden inside a red mud cave. Problem is that safe zone definitely wasn't marked on his minimap. A massive chasm opens up in front of him. Dead end, no time to hesitate. It's do or die. He jams his sword into the cliff face, surfing down the sheer vertical drop. He hits the ground, rolls, and immediately scrambles up the opposite ridge. This has to be the spot. The dirt shifted hues, signaling a hidden zone, but the entrance was a mystery. He roared in frustration as the monster horde closed in. Screaming into the void wasn't working. That wall wasn't budging. Yukito glanced over his shoulder. A massive black storm cloud was blotting out the sky. The swarm was breathing down his neck. Back against the stone, he braced for impact, ready to throw down. Zero backup coming. Fine. He'd make his own door. He slashed at the barrier, and what he saw inside made his jaw hit the floor. The tunnel was packed with bodies, men and women stripped down to their skivvies, hog-tied hand and foot. Duct tape over their mouths. Silence. Yukito Takahashi blinked hard. What kind of twisted nightmare was this? Dozens of eyes locked onto him, screaming for salvation without making a sound. Yukito hesitated. Please tell me I didn't just stumble into some weird underground fetish club." No answer. Obviously. The gags made conversation impossible. "Right, probably not," he muttered. Then he moved. Pure speed. A blur of motion through the crowd. A confident smirk, a flash of steel. Precision work, with zero margin for error. His blade moved faster than the eye could track, slicing ropes without grazing skin. Instant freedom. You could feel the relief in the air. These guys had already made their peace with death. Now Yukito needed answers. What's the story here? Story was simple, ambushed, knocked out cold. But since they were still breathing, it only meant one thing. Adventurers aren't prisoners, they're merchandise. Yukito's mind raced. Did I just bust a slave trafficking ring? This was supposed to be a resupply zone. Then it clicked. In the future, this becomes a supply hub after the cops raid it and clear out the trash. It gets repurposed later. Yukito Takahashi realized he'd arrived way ahead of the timeline. In his past life, he only looked out for number one, just grinding out a pathetic existence. 10 years of hunting slimes, just existing. But that was then. Snap back to now. He shut down the nostalgia trip. No time for flashbacks. He needed an exit strategy fast. Killer bugs outside, unarmed victims inside. This was messy even for him. Time to lock in. Survival mode activated. He turned to the shivering crowd. Look, I know you're freaked out, but you need to focus. Right now. He pointed straight up. We've got a swarm of man-eating cicadas inbound. And they are hungry. We stick around, we're dead. The 15th floor is crawling with them. They peered out the cave mouth. Horror washed over their faces. Pure, unadulterated panic. It was a wall of monsters. Yukito cut through the fear. Like I said, clock's ticking. You want to live, you stick with me. The guys looked doubtful. How do you fight a swarm like that? We can't fight, a girl cried out. The slavers took all our gear. Yukito just grinned. Gear, I got you. He tapped into his system interface. He raided his inventory. All that grinding and monster slaying had paid off. Swords, bows, shields, high-level armor, it all materialized in a heap on the cave floor. The ex-prisoners stared in silence. A literal armory. Go ahead, Takahashi said. They're yours. Jaws dropped. This wasn't junk. This was expensive kit. This stuff is insanely rare, one girl whispered. Who is this guy? The question hung in the air. No name, just god-tier loot. Total stranger. But survival instinct kicked in. The guys scrambled for the weapons and clothes. It almost turned into a brawl over the best pieces. Tank gear versus DPS. Dude, you could retire on this haul, someone yelled. You serious? We can keep this, the girl asked. Yukito nodded. One condition. I don't want money. I want command. For the next hour, I own you. Zero complaints. He was their ticket out. Plus, the guys were hyped on the shiny new gear. Fighting for him was a small price to pay. A redhead snatched up a recurve bow, smirking. Loud and clear, boss. One by one, they fell in line. A beefy guy even volunteered for tank duty. Zip it and listen up, Takahashi commanded. For a second, a memory flickered, a scene from his past life, the moments right before he died. He took a breath, actually grateful. Grateful for the chance to call the shots this time. The team exchanged grins, weapons ready, waiting for the signal. Yukito wasn't laughing. He kept a total poker face, waiting to see what the new guy had to say. Standing at the cave's mouth, our hero spread his arms wide, blocking the path. His mind was racing with tactics. We use the bottleneck, he thought. Force the swarm into the narrow gap so they don't get swamped by the entire horde at once. Takahashi scanned the crowd, locking eyes with every survivor. Kill as many as you can, he ordered. No hesitation. Panic flickered in some eyes, steel resolve in others. But Yukito knew they had this. Together they could crush this insect cloud. The impromptu captain hoisted his blade high. Attack, he roared, signaling the squad to engage. The swarm hit the cave mouth and Yukito went to work. Bam, he dropped them one by one. The bottleneck strategy was paying off big time. He was a whirlwind of steel in that tight corridor. Left-right slice dice. Nothing was getting past his guard. The rest of the crew stepped up. A red-haired stunner drew her bow sniping targets with deadly precision. A pint-sized mage started blasting magic, proving size doesn't matter. The team was holding the line against the insect onslaught. But the numbers were insane. The swarm was so thick you couldn't even see the cave entrance anymore. It was a wall of bugs. It was an endless tide, but the survivors fought like hell. Pile of dead bugs or not, they were refusing to die today. Yet they just kept coming. Infinite respawn glitch. The ex-prisoners felt hope slipping away as the horde showed no sign of stopping. Yukito ground his teeth. This wasn't working. Even the hero started wondering if this was a fight they could actually win. Boom! The cave shuddered. Debris started raining from the ceiling. Fall back, the captain screamed. Retreat. Staying disciplined, the squad booked it deeper into the tunnel. But the monster count was skyrocketing. It was a nightmare scenario. At this rate, the bugs would chew through the mountain itself. Panic started to set in. Death felt imminent. But Yukito kept his cool eyes darting around, analyzing every detail for an exit strategy. Analysis incomplete, he thought. Damn, can't rely on the system. Then he spotted it. Explosives sitting on the floor near a tunnel branch. Bingo. That was their golden ticket out of here. High-grade stuff probably used by crawlers for mining. Takahashi didn't hesitate. He swooped in and grabbed the dynamite. He yelled over the chaos. Yo, listen up, there's dynamite scattered in this cave. Find it. One guy got it immediately. Weaponized explosives. Heck yeah. The girls didn't wait either. Everyone started scavenging. It was their only shot. The battle raged on for several hours, a desperate grind against the deadly cicada swarm. It was brutal, but survival was the only option. They had been pushed back until they held only a third of the cave. Nowhere left to run. One girl was tapped out on mana. The walls were groaning, ready to cave in. Yukito tried to manage the chaos, but he saw the writing on the wall. He closed his eyes for a split second. Only one play left. Yukito snapped his eyes open and shouted, "Attention." Every head turned his way. "Hand over every stick of dynamite you found." His tone allowed zero argument. They obeyed instantly. The crowd was skeptical. Would it be enough, or was this just like trying to bail out the ocean with a bucket? Yukito caught the bundles. He had a crazy look in his eye. He wasn't just killing bugs, he was blowing the whole cave. Bring the mountain down on them. These low IQ mobs operated on simple aggro logic, attack the biggest threat. That meant they were coming for the MVP who killed the most Yukito. Suddenly, a girl screamed out. Hole in the ceiling, it's coming down. The captain didn't waste a second. Move, everyone, get out now. One survivor looked back horrified. Dude, are you just standing there? You trying to die with these things? They needed reassurance. Yukito just flashed a confident grin. He needed them to trust him one last time. Then he was alone. Just him and a swirling cloud of killer insects. He knew the score sometimes. You gotta roll the dice. This was it. He prepped the heavy ordnance, the X-13 explosives. Time to roast some demon cicadas. But the system blared a warning. No demolition skill detected. A coin flip. 50% chance it fizzles because his hunter class wasn't built for bombs. He banked on his luck stat. Then another ding. Items damaged. Odds plummeted to 25%. Boom, against all odds it blew. The ground gave way and our hero plummeted into the abyss, fighting midair. The bugs dived after him. He had to trust the plan while moving like a circus acrobat. He fought for stability in freefall, knuckles white as he gripped his silver sword. Yukito unleashed his signature, dissecting kick. It never misses. But one tough monster was still clinging to life. The beast locked eyes with our hero, a stare-down screaming death. Yukito decided right then, no more holding back. He bet everything on one critical strike, a bone-crushing blow. Launching himself backward, he fought to escape the yawning abyss. Takahashi smirked. His luck held out. The crowd watching the stream was absolutely shook, jaws on the floor. The monster just tanked his full-power punch like it was nothing. Viewers held their breath, terrified Yukito would drop. He swung his blade, driving it into the sheer cliff face. But reality hit hard, the steel wouldn't bite. The blade skidded off the stone. In a heartbeat, the kid was free-falling into the dark void. Escape looked impossible. It was over. Suddenly, a rope snaked down from above, looping his arm like a perfect lasso. Yukito clamped down on it just in time. Grabbing the lifeline from his new allies, the men up top lined up and heaved, hauling him up from the depths. Our hero scrambled onto solid ground, a grin plastered on his face. The battlefield was a graveyard of rocks and dead cicadas. Total annihilation. As he slumped onto a boulder catching his breath, he surveyed the carnage he'd unleashed. The guy felt a surge of pride. They'd just wiped out an entire army of insect nightmares. The survivors couldn't believe it, saying, "It's insane after a brawl like that. 0 casualties." Takahashi was vibing with that outcome. The system pinged. Massive number of deadly cicadas eliminated. Yukito just ranked up to fighter. His damage against insect types buffed by 20%. He hit level 3. New skill unlocked warrior intuition. Meanwhile, the bandit leader was losing it, kicking his table in a blind rage. His goon clutched his head in terror, because that scumbag Yukito had just wrecked their base. The boss knew he'd have to answer for this failure, maybe with his life. Snatching a wine bottle, the bandit roared, "This mess is all that idiot's fault." He popped the cork, chugging the booze straight from the neck like a maniac. After draining nearly every drop, he hurled the bottle at the wall, smashing it into a million shards. The gang leader swore a blood oath he would personally end Takahashi Yukito. Consumed by fury, he was ready to burn it all down for revenge even if it killed him. Back in the safety zone, our hero, wrapping up his grind on the lower floors, strolled into the company office. He noticed the shift in the room immediately. Heads turned, whispers started. Yukito realized his face card was getting recognized way more often these days. The receptionist beamed, saying, "You absolutely crushed it again." They were calling him the Mountain Crusher now, the savior of the people. Every guild in town was sliding into his DMs. But today, Yukito wasn't feeling the chat. He politely dodged them, claiming he was in a rush. Truth is, he ghosted every offer because he's technically locked out of teaming up. His mind was on one thing, the elixir for his mom. Crafting it under these restrictions would be a massive grind, so that cure wasn't happening anytime soon. Plus, squad loot is pure RNG. The odds of snagging a rare drop tank significantly thanks to the split mechanics. He did the math, more guildies equals a lower win rate for him. But Takahashi didn't let it kill his vibe. In his past life, he soloed dungeons like a boss anyway. Why switch up the meta now? Wrapping up his errands, the hero headed straight for the crib. His mom and sister were waiting with a feast. Yukito was stoked that adventure had left him starving. Before digging in, the fam bowed their heads to thank God. Finally, Takahashi could dive into that home-cooked goodness. The flavor hit him with a wave of déjà vu. Maybe he'd tasted this in his past life. They weren't rich, but this family knew how to celebrate the little wins. Nozomi hyped up her bro for hitting level 20 so fast. But Mom, she looked stressed. She asked, "Are you sure about this? Rumor has it the difficulty curve spikes hard after level 20. His sister chimed in, looking anxious, mentioning only 15% of hunters survive past that milestone. Mom scolded her for checking stats at the dinner table. The hero looked them in the eye, reassuring them everything was chill. "Did you forget who I am?" The woman softened, admitting she was incredibly proud of his hustle. Behind her, a wall of newspaper clippings glorified his wins. For a second, Mom closed her eyes, fighting back tears. When she found her voice, she whispered, "Just stay safe, okay? No parent wants their kid playing the hero and dying for strangers." The young man froze, words failing him. A dark memory from his past life clawed its way up, burying his mother. He looked at her with pure affection, replying, "And no kid wants to see their parents broken-hearted." Mom started to argue, but Nozomi cut in. She said, "Mom, let him cook. You can't stop him anyway." Belle flashed a playful grin, teasing, "Bro, you're impossible. Once you lock onto an idea, there is no shaking you loose." Tears welled up in Mom's eyes. Looking at them, the image of her late husband hit her hard. The resemblance was heartbreaking. Takahashi cut in soft but firm, "Ma, chill. I'm doing this because I gotta. Trust me." Stunned, she couldn't find the words to argue, so she just went back to her meal in silence. Staring into his water glass, the hero caught his own reflection and drifted off. Dark memories flooded back that previous timeline where he failed to save Mom. The guilt was a physical ache in his chest. But he could scrub that history clean. He just needed to hit reset and start a new life. The key, that magic elixir. Dinner done. The young man clasped his hands, a silent prayer of thanks. Best meal ever, guys. Seriously. Quick recharge at home, then boom, straight back to the grind. Descending the dungeon stairs, his brain was already running combat sims. Ding system alert, Tokyo Dungeon level 20. Quest, the stubborn alchemist. Ahead stood a massive wall that basically flipped off the laws of physics. Yukito spotted the threat and charged straight in, blade drawn. These things were nightmarish hybrids, half robot, half skeleton, all bathed in a hostile crimson glow. He recalled the lore. Everything on this floor was inorganic, cold dead matter. He moved like a blur, blitzing two mobs simultaneously before they could react. Yukito knew the deal. These aren't living things. They're heartless killing machines. Suddenly, winged variants swooped from above. Aerial assault incoming. But their fatal flaw, they ran on predictable scripts. He read their patterns like an open book. /dodge strike, he cleared the obstacles in seconds. Then he skid to a halt. Something up ahead froze him in his tracks. A hulking silhouette of a stone monster loomed in the darkness. A cyclops, its single eye burning with hellfire. That radiating red aura screamed aggression. The young man realized this wasn't fodder. This was going to be a grind. Strategy time. Download the enemy's attack patterns. Analyze, react, destroy. That was the win condition. The behemoth cocked a massive fist ready to flatten him. Smash. The ground shattered right where Yukito stood a split second ago. He was dancing on the edge of death, vaulting around to stay in one piece. He couldn't match its raw power, so he had to outplay it. Using agility as his weapon, he parkoured around the beast, scanning for a weakness. Gotcha. He spotted the core. One precision strike shattered the unintelligent brute. Mission accomplished. Yukito stuck the landing, not a scratch on him. Behind him, the stone giant crumbled to dust. One step closer to the prize. He faced the towering gate. Pushing it open, adrenaline surged. This is it. Time to claim my new life. Blinding golden light spilled from the crack. Instantly, Takahashi was teleported into a colossal sphere-shaped arena etched with arcane runes. Slam, the door sealed shut behind him. No retreat, no surrender. Dead center stood a titan, a giant stone monster crusted with ancient moss. Glowing symbols on its shoulders matched the floor. Yukito clocked it immediately. Ancient Golem, the guardian of the treasure. This is the level 20 floor boss. Defeating this nightmare was the only key to his future. The golem looked terrifying, boasting insane stats and devastating power. But this was exactly why Takahashi speedran to the 20th floor. Go time. He charged, noting the boss's sluggish movement speed, launching himself into the air. He brought his sword down on the golem's skull. The plan was simple: chip away the armor, expose the weak point, the core, and shut down this ancient relic. But he wasn't alone. A hidden spectator was lurking in the shadows. The gang leader, whose plans failed last time, smirking from the entryway. He prayed for the kid's game over. Suddenly, the floor runes flared up, drenching the hall in ominous crimson light. Then the unthinkable happened. The pentagram surged, spawning a second monster from the floor. Yukito stared at its forehead in shock. The ancient golem had backup. This massive new threat expanded to fill the room, pulsing with a blue-purple core. The hero whipped his head toward the entrance. A chill ran down his spine. A second boss spawning meant only one thing: the system detected another player. But how? He hadn't sensed a soul. The hero figured crashers were inevitable, but interrupting a boss fight, that's just rookie suicide. Yukito scanned the perimeter for the intruder. Suddenly, a cheap shot, a dagger screamed through the air, aimed dead center at his spine. Pure instinct kicked in. A split-second shiver down his spine was the only warning he got. Clang. One precise parry sent the blade spinning away. But like a boomerang, the battered steel curved right back to its owner. It clicked immediately. This was a setup. High above the bandit leader, ground his teeth in frustration. Missed again. How does this slippery brat do it? No normie should have this much plot armor. And those reflexes are insane. Whatever. Another blade materialized in the thief's grip as he forced his pulse to slow down. He still held the high ground. This kid was just a clueless noob walking into a slaughter. Intel on floor 20 was clear. You need a full squad of 4 just to scratch that ancient golem. So he'd crept in behind Takahashi to trigger a spawn trap, summoning a second golem. But unlike our hero, the bandit wasn't on the menu. To those stone monsters, he was a ghost. His thief level dwarfed Takahashi's. With his stealth stats maxed out, he was practically untouchable. Skill-activated catwalk. The ringleader glided into the chamber, silent as a whisper. He popped Shadow Twin, blending into the darkness to aggro the second golem without getting caught. Moving at breakneck speed, he left afterimages in his wake, looking like he was in 2 places at once. This was payback. Soloing 2 ancient golems. That's a straight-up death sentence. For insurance, he donned his ace in the hole, an S-rank invisibility cloak. Total presence concealment. Now, the ringleader was cocky. 0 chance of detection. 3-on-1 is dirty, sure, but hey, that's the thief's way. But he wasn't done cooking yet. His daggers were dripping with lethal venom. One scratch would tank Yukito's escape chances. He launched a blade straight at the hero's blind spot. Yukito never saw it coming. The bandit smirked. Calculated aggression is key. Keep him guessing. Whoosh! The blade shaved the air inches from Takahashi's face. The poison gambit flopped. The leader froze. Does this kid have an antidote stash? Hidden under that trash-tier armor. Whatever. As long as the kid stayed panicked, the plan was working. He unleashed hell, a storm of 4-bladed shurikens raining down on the hero. The bandit grinned to himself. God, I love traps. Solo was the way to go. After dealing with incompetent teammates, he was done carrying dead weight. He'd trust his mechanics, specifically the ones with a 1 to 100% success rate, like live barbed wire. In seconds, the scumbag had the hero boxed-in movement severely nerfed. Perfection. Now it was just a waiting game until the golems turned Yukito into paste. Poor kid was oblivious to the strings being pulled. He just kept hammering away at the floor. 20 bosses desperate to crack their shell and smash the cores. Their only vulnerability. Satisfied, the bandit sat back to enjoy the fireworks. Show's over. Out of nowhere, Yukito rocketed straight at him, sword point aimed for his throat. Cold sweat drenched the thief's face. Impossible. Takahashi smirked. Out of toys already, the bandit's mind reeled. How does he see me? Get down here, the kid taunted. Camping is for losers. He didn't wait. He caught the bandit's own dagger and flung it back. You obsessed with me or something? Stalking is creepy, dude. The leader barely dodged the steel. How he screamed, I'm invisible. Yukito grinned. Ever heard of Hunter's Instinct? Pretty basic skill, actually. You missed that class, the bandit snapped. Bullshit. A trash-tier skill can't track a high-level thief. Believe what you want, Yukito shrugged. So you gonna fight? Or run away with your tail between your legs? That did it. Being mocked by a low-level punk made the thief see red. A vein throbbed on his forehead. He gripped his dual blades, ready to end this. Screaming that he was superior, he launched himself off the ledge. Yukito didn't flinch. Yukito stood like a statue, baiting the rush. When their blades finally collided, the screech of steel kissing steel was deafening. A shower of sparks erupted between them. Yukito didn't budge an inch, but his enemy got blasted back like he'd just grabbed a live wire. Our hero flashed a cocky grin. Pro tip, save the victory speech for when you actually win. Sound good? With a casual flick of his wrist, Takahashi swatted the bandit away like a fly. But this guy was obsessed, tunnel vision locked on. He roared, foaming at the mouth. How'd you track me? Wall hacks, warrior's intuition, you lying piece of trash. Yukito didn't bother explaining. Why waste breath? He wasn't lying anyway. Warrior intuition was already live. It's a clutch passive for combat, sniffing out danger nearby. But the RNG on this skill, absolute garbage usually. 99% failure rate, 0.9% success. And the legendary great successes, a measly 0.1%. Staring at the system window, Yukito prayed to the RNG gods. A smirk crept onto his face. He felt a critical hit coming. Ding. The notification popped. Great success. Jackpot. Instantly, every thread on the field lit up in high definition. A radar HUD overlaid his vision, pinging red. The bandit was charging back in full tilt. "You're moving way too fast for your level," the thug barked. "I'll take that as a compliment," Takahashi quipped, locking his stance. The duel raged on. The bandit, still delusional about winning, sneered at the young fighter. "At the end of the day, you're just a low-rank scrub." He was convinced his agility stats were superior. Classic ego trip. Swinging wild, he kept yapping about his elite talent and pinpoint accuracy. Trouble was, he wasn't just barking. The gang leader actually landed a hit. Fresh blood trickled down Yukito's arm. The bandit scoffed. "Looks like you prepped for the wrong scenario." He got comfortable dropping his guard. Fatal mistake. He blinked, and his opponent ghosted him, reappearing right behind his back. Yukito swung his blade. It felt like just a split second more and he would have punched his ticket. But tough luck. This bandit wasn't just some random mob. His instincts were god tier. At the absolute last second, his spidey senses tingled, launching him into a mid-air backflip. And defying death miraculously, he sneered. "You're still digging your own grave, kid." The hero didn't waste breath on a comeback. He moved in silence, unleashing his signature sword art, Beast Sting. But the lad's desperate attempt only made his opponent cackle. The man jeered. "That your guaranteed hit skill, please." He was toying with him already 3 steps ahead. The rogue triggered his skill butterfly dance. Suddenly, the guy was a blur, a visual glitch appearing in 10 places at once, confusing the hell out of Yukito. Slash. Yukito gritted his teeth, thinking, another miss. Before he could reset, the thief was already winding up for round 2. Launching off the pavement, he blitzed toward Takahashi. The man taunted. Perfect conditions for an evasion game. When 2 skills clash, he was closing the gap at breakneck speed. As he kept running his mouth about how stats are the only thing that matters, his blade found its mark again. Steel bit into flesh. Yukito's leg was gushing red. "Damn it," the hero hissed. His defense was crumbling, leaving him wide open. The bandit was loving every second of this. His voice pitched up into a manic squeal, a slow-poke warrior like "you ain't never catching me." Out of nowhere, one of the ancient golems decided to join the party, firing a scorching laser beam. Only pure instinct and raw talent saved Takahashi from being vaporized on the spot. But the bandit, he just kept gloating. He hollered floor 20 is a raid paradise. He stopped just out of reach, flowing through bizarre combat stances. He bragged he could dance around the floor 20 boss all day. He claimed it was easy because of his analysis. Since the golem moves in a scripted pattern, the bandit grilled the guy. "You bought the guild walkthrough too, didn't ya?" Takahashi stayed ice cold, silently deflecting another strike. It was a chaotic duel sandwiched between 2 rampaging ancient golems that would randomly throw hands. Suddenly, agony shot up the hero's leg. Was his luck finally running dry? He glanced down and his heart sank the serrated blade of a trap. Standing in a pool of his own blood, he'd walked right onto a hidden spike. The rogue beamed, thrilled his setup worked. He announced with a cocky grin, "No intruders on floor 20. Checkmate. I won this the second I started prepping for this op." Screaming his victory speech, the bandit unleashed Scorpion Point. Takahashi's confidence shattered as he barely parried the barrage. He couldn't hold his ground anymore. Boom! The mana shockwave from the enemy blade blasted him backward. The impact was brutal, lights out, consciousness fading. Clatter. The sword slipped from his grip, hitting the stone tiles. The young man snapped awake instantly, realizing he was weaponless against the Reaper. The bandit roared, "Game over." He tasted victory. The scum's dual blades zoomed in for the kill. Takahashi looked terrified, eyes wide, panic mode. But in a split second, the hero's vibe flipped completely. He stuck his tongue out and said, "CK." "Just kidding." Yukito snapped his fingers, triggering his own trap. Snap. The bandit was instantly engulfed in a swirling purple sphere. The guy froze, realizing he was stuck in a gravity trap. The young man smirked at his captive. "You said no unexpected variables earlier, right? Well, looks like you missed one. Any last words?" The thief's jaw dropped, unable to control his own mouth. Takahashi explained, "That guild info only applies to normal runs. Nobody expects some idiot to start a PvP match right in front of the floor 20 boss." The thug, crushed by gravity, could only wheeze. For real, wham. An ancient golem smashed its fist exactly on the spot, where the bandit was pinned. The hero backflipped to safety just in time. He kept talking cool as a cucumber. With a double raid active, even the dungeon management changes the rules. He delivered the line with a winning smile. He mocked the outlaw. "You call yourself a pro thief but missed my traps. Embarrassing." The bandit refused to accept reality. He screamed that it was impossible, calling the kid low-level trash who should have just fought like a normal scrub. He was too busy raging to see the massive fist incoming. The boss's blow connected squarely with the bandit leader's face. The impact shattered the gravity trap, and the thief face-planted into the dirt. Wheezing and broken on the floor, he groaned. That stings. The floor 20 boss wasn't done. It grabbed the injured man with massive fingers and hoisted him high into the air. And then, the ancient golem simply let go. Crunch. The bandit slammed onto the cold stone hall. His bloodied hand twitched. Revenge was slipping away. Barely clinging to life, the mangled mess whispered, "How? How did I miss a scrub's trap?" Yukito Takahashi looked down and replied, "Like I said, my gamer instincts never miss." The gang boss wheezed, dripping crimson onto the cold tiles. Basking in the win, our hero told the scumbag to save his breath. The young man smirked, "If you're still kicking after I wreck the ancient boss, I'll drag your sorry self to the cops." But this snake had one last fang left. Gasping for air, he pushed himself up on shaky arms, muttering like a maniac, "Don't play me," thanks to his insane luck stat. Takahashi's hearing was cranked to 11. He caught every syllable. Suddenly the rogue screamed, "Then I'm dragging you straight to hell with me." He ripped his jacket open, revealing a strapped bandolier of explosives. He roared, "This firepower makes your toy sword look like a toothpick." Yukito froze, totally blindsided. He stared at the enemy. "Have you lost your absolute mind?" But the guy's eyes were already gone, pure madness. He was ready to nuke the whole place just to kill Yukito. A system prompt flashed and he slammed yes. K-boom. A massive fireball ripped through the room. The shockwave tore up the ground, sending debris hurtling toward Yukito. The floor beneath him gave way, spiderweb cracks shattering into a void. Suddenly he was dead center in the chaos with zero exit strategy. Gravity took the wheel and he plummeted into the abyss. Darkness swallowed him whole. After a terrifying freefall, Takahashi slammed into cold stone. Crack. He clutched his head, groaning. That really hurt. As his eyes adjusted to the gloom, he gauged the drop. Way up high, a tiny patch of sky mocked him. His body felt like lead. He couldn't move. After a beat, he forced himself to sit up. He scanned the area and gasped, "A secret dungeon room. Seriously. But the universe has zero chill." Before he could breathe, he saw a golem diving at him from the shadows. This thing just wouldn't quit. Takahashi clenched his fists, adrenaline overriding the pain, and staggered to his feet. A grim thought hit him. I'm totally cornered. Praying his legendary luck streak was still active, he scanned the chamber. There, through a crack in the wall, he spotted a ladder and something shiny. What the heck is that? He squinted hard, making out a chest pulsing with magical aura. A grin broke across his face. No way. Is that real? Turns out, secret rooms and epic loot are a package deal. Now, he needed to get in that room no matter what. Maybe fate dropped him here for the loot, but suddenly a second golem, courtesy of that bandit's explosion, crashed into the pit. Great. Now it's a mosh pit. Yukito realized there was zero room to maneuver. Taking on two boss-level mobs head-on, suicide. He needed a strategy fast. Only one option, Yukito thought. I'm betting everything on that chest. All in. He snapped into focus and sprinted, aiming to slide right through the legs of the guardian golem. He launched himself upward, closing the gap with desperate speed. He needed to kick off the wall hard, or he'd wipe out completely. Smooth as silk, he vaulted onto the golem's massive shoulder and used it as a launch pad. Just one more second, and he'd land near the loot. The chest was right there. He was about to snag the prize, but the second boss, camping by the treasure, had other plans. Zap! A laser beam tore through the air. Takahashi didn't see it coming. It blasted him square in the back, ruining his trajectory. His grip failed, and his sword clattered away. Yukito slammed into the ground like a rag doll, coughing up a spray of blood, body trembling. He tried to hype himself up, its cool spine still intact. Small victories, right. But he looked up and froze. The 20th floor boss was looming over him, ready to end the game. A giant stone foot hovered above him, ready to squash him like a bug. Pure terror hit Takahashi. His luck finally ran dry. He was too battered to move, too broken to dodge. Then came the impact and a scream-inducing agony. Crunch. The sound of bones snapping echoed. The ancient golem's foot pulverized Yukito's legs into paste. Blood drooled from his lips, pooling on the cold stone. His vision blurred. The pain was sending him straight to Blackout City. Summoning every ounce of willpower, he slammed his fist into the floor. Do not give up. The agony was so intense, he started dry heaving. Through the haze, his eyes locked on one thing: the treasure chest. His sword was right there next to it, but his legs were useless wreckage. The golem wasn't showing mercy. It wanted a kill confirmation and raised its foot for a second stomp. Vision bleeding red, a primal scream ripped from the hero's throat. Memories of his past life came flooding back. A 70-year existence that felt like an eternity compared to this brutal speedrun. But things had changed. Agony seared through his shattered legs, yet Takahashi dragged himself across the floor. He had to reach the loot, it was the only way to save his mom. Running on pure adrenaline and grit, Yukito forced his body forward, reaching the chest and throwing the lid open. Boom! A blinding azure light blasted outward. The source, a mono-radiating blue gem. A smirk tugged at Takahashi's lips. He'd secured the objective even if it cost him everything. The bracelet housing the stone was humming with insane magical power, but the clock was ticking. The massive stone golem was winding up for a fatality. He had to move fast. Literally seconds before it was game over. Instinct took the wheel as the hero snatched the bracelet. He knew exactly how to play this. Slapping the artifact onto his wrist, Yukito muttered, "Got it. That means I win. Looks like Lady Luck hasn't abandoned him yet." Yukito just equipped the one item that could clutch this entire raid. The Bracelet of Changeability, a super rare drop that lets the wearer teleport anywhere. After a quick scan of the stats, Yukito realized this was his lifeline. The golem was practically on top of him, gravity taking over as the stone giant began to crush him. He mashed the activation command, but the success rate was terrifyingly low. This artifact wasn't built for his class. But with every millisecond, the odds of a successful cast ticked up. Just as the golem's shadow swallowed him whole, the bracelet fired. Click. A massive stone block slammed down with a deafening crash, right where Yukito had been lying a split second ago. Silence. Dust settled. Then the distinct hum of the artifact chirped. Glitched out of thin air, Takahashi Yukito materialized right behind the standing golem. He drove his blade straight into the monster's magical heart. He was taking this win no matter what. Enraged, the boss charged up a laser beam. The stone golem, totally confused about where the aggro was coming from, fired its laser blindly at the second golem lying prone in front of it. The red beam melted through its target. Talk about a messy situation. Even though the second golem was already pummeled, it was still kicking. But Yukito wasn't about to despair. He was ready to flow. The guy blinked out of existence and popped up in a new spot. Target acquired the first boss on the ground. Yukito began carving a path toward the golem's core to shatter it. Suddenly, the ground shook. Yukito stumbled as the massive golem tried to scramble to its feet, shaking the hero off like a ragdoll. Simultaneously, the second boss lunged to grab him midair. The stone golem swung a heavy haymaker at Yukito, but he'd already downloaded his opponent's moveset. Yukito triggered the bracelet again. Teleporting behind the boss, he went on the offensive trying to crack its armor. The element of surprise was his best weapon. The stone monster spun around, swinging wildly to swat the annoying fly. Yukito repositioned instantly, faster than the eye could track. He was locked in fighting until his last breath. The stone golem could sense the boy trying to breach its defenses. But speed was king here. The golem couldn't lay a finger on him. Yukito ping-ponged between the two giants, chipping away at their defenses, aiming for the kill shot on their hearts. Slowly but surely, the grind was paying off. Hit after hit, he pierced their stony armor, racking up damage on their cores. Both stone golem hearts were taking a serious beating. But they hadn't shattered yet. This dance of death dragged on for minutes. Instead of praying for a natural 20, Yukito was ready to keep rolling the dice until he forced the result he wanted. Finally, the golems locked onto him. He materialized dead center between the two behemoths. Yukito wasn't backing down from his new life. The monsters synced their targeting systems. Both golems accelerated, aiming to sandwich the boy. Two massive stone hands closed in for the execution. Yukito triggered the bracelet one more time. Unable to stop their momentum, the golems smashed directly into each other, crushing their own cores. The friendly fire damage was massive, but they were still standing. Yukito reappeared behind the first golem. He unleashed Beast Sting, shattering the first core with a perfect critical hit. Without missing a beat, he blinked to the second boss. This time, Yukito popped the Storm of Strikes ultimate. The attack connected cleanly, and the second golem crumbled. Yukito had just soloed two bosses in a single run. As the golems disintegrated, the exhausted hero plummeted from the sky. Yukito tried to trigger the bracelet for a soft landing, but nothing happened. 0 charges left. He slammed into the pile of dust and sand, left behind by the monsters. Yukito Takahashi had defeated 2 ancient golem bosses and secured a legendary teardrop elixir. His eyes widened as the loot spawned. 2 legendary elixirs. The RNG gods were definitely smiling on him. Without hesitation, he popped the cork on one vial. He downed it in a single gulp. Wonder what the flavor profile was. The second it hit his system, the magic kicked in. A brilliant green aura enveloped him. His shattered legs began to knit themselves back together. Like magic, every gash and bruise erased itself from his skin, leaving 0 trace. Even his gear seemed to reboot, shedding the grime and tears until it looked brand new. The nightmare, it's over. Yukito stood tall, radiating main character energy, totally pumped for whatever came next. The plan worked flawlessly. He was breathing, he was standing, and he had secured the legendary elixir for his mom. The system flashed awarding Yukito Takahashi not 1, but 3 rare titles for crushing those conditions. Survivor boosts defense by 10. Slayer of 2 giants amps strength by 20, and Arbiter of the Law spikes his dexterity by 10 points. Yukito opens his inventory, checking the loot. He is absolutely hyped, his risky gamble paid off, and he bagged a god-tier item. Now he just needs to bounce. In seconds, he sprints back to the top, reaching the main boss hall. Scanning the area, he spots the bandit's cape lying there. He snatched it up, figuring it was solid evidence of the crime. Clutching the blood-soaked fabric, Yukito bolted for the exit. He shoved the gates open and stepped back into reality. Fresh out of the dungeon, he stormed into the guild and spilled the tea on everything. The receptionist looked terrified and scrambled to grab the supervisor. Obviously, the place went into total chaos. The boss wanted an exclusive interview to milk the drama, but Yukito had zero time for press junkets. He told them to take a rain check. He's on a mission. Bursting out of the guild, he sprinted down the street. Heads were turning everywhere. Of course, he was already trending. The guy who shattered records by clearing 20 floors and soloing 2 bosses at once. A total beast. But Yukito blocked out the noise. He didn't do this for the clout or the cash. This was personal. He secured the holy grail of medicine to save his mom. A little later, back at the hospital, the doctor reviewed the charts. Yukito and Nozomi sat on the edge of their seats, hearts pounding as they waited. The doctor turned with a smile. Mrs. Yuki is cured, 100% healthy. The room exploded with relief. Even the doc was shook by how potent that elixir was. It's a literal miracle. Nozomi threw her arms around her mom. Mrs. Yuki grabbed her son's hand, thanking him for the impossible save. She was beaming, just grateful to have her life back. Yukito, fighting back, happy tears thanked her right back. It was her love and how she raised him that let him pull this off. Finally, he could speak his heart. Nozomi got all emotional hearing her brother be so sweet. Then she teased him for making a scene in front of the doc. Save the drama for home, bro. Rubbing the back of his neck, Yukito laughed, admitting she had a point. Wiping her eyes, Nozomi marveled at how her brother finally learned to look past his own nose. Suddenly, the vibe shifted. Reality glitched. The world froze in place. Through the window, eyes were watching the Takahashi family. Right then, the window creaked open, and a boot stepped into the room. The intruder sighed, hating that he had to condemn such pure souls to a grim fate. A blonde dude in a cheap fit stepped inside. He looked genuinely bummed out, knowing that doing this hit in a hospital didn't make it any less tragic. But as doctors say, we did our best, but sometimes best isn't enough. The family wouldn't question it. The autopsy would just say heart attack. The blonde launched a haymaker straight at Nozomi. But instantly, Yukito caught the fist mid-air. The killer's eyes went wide. Yukito demanded to know what the hell this creep was doing, but the blonde stayed silent, too stunned by a different detail. How is this kid moving in the time stop? Yukito's brain clicked. He knew this face. Is this actually the hero? The number 1 ranked adventurer? The guy the world calls its savior? No mistake, Yukito's eyes were working fine. That's Uayama Kosamuraito. The intruder flashed a unique badge, confirming his hero status. Yukito was baffled. Why is the good guy pulling a villain move? Uayama cut him off. He had his own questions. How is Yukito defying the laws of the void? Only those who have tasted death can move here. That leaves one theory. Is this kid a regressor too? If Blondie is talking about rebirth, he's exposing himself. It's true. And since the secret is out, Uayama decided to drop some lore. He's here to cancel the apocalypse. Yukito snapped back. What does his sister have to do with the end of the world? Apparently she's a catalyst. Specifically, the toxic effect she has on her future husband. That's why Nozomi has to be deleted. Future husband. Yukito was lost. The hero explained that future guy is a massive deal for the world. Their eventual divorce breaks him. That heartbreak triggers the collapse of civilization. That is why Uayama showed up today, to erase the sister from the timeline. Smirking, the blonde waited for Yukito to get the logic and stand down. Rather than chilling him out, those words just poured gasoline on Yukito's rage. He clapped back hard, insisting this timeline was a completely blank slate, totally disconnected from that tragic past. In this reality, he'd already saved their mom. That meant Nozomi never had to grind at that shady nightclub to cover crushing medical debt, which means she never meets that future husband. Erasing Nozomi now, that's zero logic, pure madness. Uyama found the theory entertaining, sure, but the blonde hero wasn't about to fold. Why bet on what-ifs when you can act on certainty? Yukito got in his face, swearing he wouldn't let a single finger lay on her. Uyama wasn't exactly thrilled either. He'd prefer to keep his hands clean. After all, he's in the business of saving humanity, not slaughtering it. But isn't one life a small price for global peace? Yukito stood his ground, iron-willed. He was shielding his sister. End of story. Uyama wasn't budging on his mission either. Then a spark of inspiration hit. The blonde proposed a simple solution, a duel. A chance to prove he's got the chops. Yukito stared, baffled by the sudden pivot. There had to be something special about this kid. You have to wonder how much is Uyama gambling by cutting him this much slack. Yukito hated that condescending gaze, but hey, what do you expect from a so-called hero? Uyama realized he was being a bit disrespectful to a fellow awakened, but technically he was just literally looking down on the shorter guy. A status window popped up, flashing insane numbers. Yukito's jaw dropped. Where the hell did this guy grind those god-tier stats? Uyama stalked forward, closing the gap. No need for speeches. The reality was brutally simple. Zero power means zero protection. Doesn't matter if you're trying to save the world. Or just your family. The rule is absolute. A bitter pill every regressor has to swallow. Crunch time. Either Uyama deletes his sister right here right now, or Yukito steps up to the plate. What were the options? Burn a shape-shifting bracelet and go on the run. Nah, Uyama would hunt them to the ends of the earth. And physically shielding Nozomi 24/7 impossible. With his back against the wall, Yukito accepted the duel. It was on. The blonde hero knew he'd make the right call. Uyama chilled the vibe, clarifying that he wasn't interested in pulping a rookie. However, nothingness has a strict time limit, 10 minutes. That's the win condition, survive the clock, and Yukito takes the W. Yukito braced himself right here in the hallway, but the hero wasn't about to trash a public hospital. He pointed outside, then casually vaulted out the window, suggesting they find a better arena. Yukito watched him drop, realizing he had zero alternatives. He had to protect her. Yukito dove out the window after him. Moments later, they landed in a secluded park nearby. Perfect stage for a showdown. Yukito grit his teeth, telling the hero not to hold back. The blonde just smirked. He dug the kid's guts. But if he wanted it the hard way, he'd get it. Snap. Uyama summoned a swirl of glowing runes. Elemental symbols flared to life. Instantly, the runes unleashed a chaotic barrage, fire, water, earth, the works. Yukito scrambled, shocked that the guy went 0 to 100 instantly. No warm-up allowed. Uyama grinned. This was just the appetizer. With a wave, he summoned 2 identical clones. Yukito didn't expect shadow clones. The hero was clearly used to being outnumbered, or fighting armies solo. You think you can handle this? Yukito snapped, ripping open his inventory. He deployed 2 substitute dolls, giving every enemy a target. He barely parried the first strike, but his defense was paper thin. The clones shredded his puppets in a single hit. Uyama hoped the kid knew turtling up wouldn't work. And yeah, Yukito figured that out fast. Familiar sigils glowed around him. He gripped the staff of the substance of inconsequence tight, and queued up his ultimate. He just needed a split second to channel. Staff locked on the hero. And boom, a blazing meteorite screamed through the air. Too easy, maybe. But the explosion was massive. Yukito just wanted to buy a heartbeat of time. Suddenly, the blonde's voice cut through the smoke. He'd cracked the code. It was the rebirth gift. If Uyama's ace was nothingness, then Yukito was running on pure luck. The hero had slipped the attack. By sacrificing a clone to take the hit, you saw right through me, Yukito spat. I wouldn't say that, Uyama replied coolly. Just calculated the odds based on your track record. No laughing matter now. Some say Yukito's entire existence is just one lucky roll of the dice after another. Sure, RNG is a skill, just like brute force or big brain energy, but betting the house on a coin flip, that's a rookie mistake. Uyama isn't having it. He starts flooding the zone with high-tier magic runes. He is dead set on teaching this kid a lesson about being reckless. Suddenly the air crackles. Water, fire, earth, and green nature spirits manifest out of thin air. And honestly, Yukito doesn't disagree. Banking on a miracle every single time is a straight-up death wish. But caught in the glow of those spells, Yukito spotted a glitch in the hero's stats. Uyama might be OP, but his luck stat, it is abysmal, like cursed level low. Yukito can't afford to look like a clown in front of his crew. But there is no time for an existential crisis right now. The unwavering loyalty he feels, it is almost terrifying considering he doesn't doubt it for a second. He knows exactly where that drive comes from though. He would burn the world down for them just like they did for him. The blonde hero extends a hand. You ready for this? The second the words drop, it is absolute chaos. Seals shatter and elementals rush him. Welcome to the real world, kid. It is brutal, unfair, and it is time. Yukito woke up and smelled the ashes. A fire elemental leads the charge, followed closely by a water spirit. But Yukito has a scheme cooking. He is about to weaponize his own bad situations. He flicks open his inventory menu, fingers hovering over the variability bracelet. Boom! The item materializes on his wrist instantly. The plan: exploit the massive gap between his god-tier luck and the hero's trash RNG. The system pings. Wristband connected. Activation successful. He might lack the flashy class titles or high intelligence, but Lady Luck is practically his guardian angel. In a blink, he vanishes from the battlefield. Coordinates locked. He respawns right in the city center, shrouded in a void barrier. Perfect positioning. Uyama actually looks impressed. A warp bracelet, handy tech, but who needs gadgets when you have high-level flight magic? Yukito vaults off the roof of a car, dropping a quick apology to the driver. He wants the smoke right here downtown. Since Uyama wanted to test him, Yukito is flipping the script. A true hero wouldn't risk civilian casualties, right? Blondie smirks. He sees the play. It is a dirty tactic, but clever. Since his job description is public safety, he is handcuffed. He can't drop nukes or use AoE spells here. He dispels the elementals instantly. A sword is too risky too. But don't get it twisted, Yukito isn't safe. The hero doesn't need weapons to wreck a cunning trickster. Matching the vibe, Yukito tosses his sword back into inventory. Time to see how the hero handles a handicap match. If this works, click. Yukito equips a single shield. In his mind, that is all the defense he needs against this guy. Shield up the lad braces for round 2. The setup hits Uyama with a wave of nostalgia. Back in the day, villains used human shields constantly. He knows this game. He summons magical spears, basically heat-seeking missiles. They weave through traffic and pedestrians with surgical precision, locking onto Yukito's heat signature. Yukito, Hardbanks left diving into a narrow alley. The spear drifts and closes the gap instantly. Yukito raises the shield just in time. Clang. The projectile ricochets off the metal and punches a hole straight through the adjacent building. It didn't just crack the concrete base, it ruptured a gas main. Uyama ignores the danger, rambling on about his glory days, fighting monsters disguised as humans and street thugs. Apparently the city is crawling with vermin these days. Yukito keeps the conversation flowing, baiting him into a mental trap. He starts spilling tea about his own backstory, trying to throw the hero off balance. Spending his life rotting in dungeons, the city was nothing but a grocery store to him. Because of that trauma, his memory is pretty hazy. Uyama actually looks offended by that speech. The hero wanted a bonding moment, two warriors sharing war stories. He hates that Yukito isn't on the same wavelength. But Yukito, he has zero interest in opening that trauma locker. His past wasn't heroic. It was pathetic. He was a worm scraping his belly on the dirt just to survive another day. Then show some gratitude for your second chance, Uyama barks. Wham! A heavy kick connects, sending Yukito skidding across the pavement and halfway under a parked car. Groaning, Yukito quips that he actually prefers cramped spaces. It is cozy. The hero is losing his patience. Is he fighting a warrior or a sniveling coward? Yukito snags a skateboard time to boost his mobility stat. Uyama can preach all he wants, but Yukito knows his limits. Seeing the kid try to flee again, the hero sighs. This is getting boring. He wanted a worthy opponent, not a track star running laps. He refuses to acknowledge someone who just flees. Suddenly, the path cuts off. Yukito bails off the board and finds himself backed into a dead end. Nowhere to run. If fleeing is his only strat, this fight is a wrap. Uyama charges up his finisher. Game over. Not yet. Yukito scans the area. Target acquired a concrete lamppost to his left. If the hero thinks he is cornered, he has got another thing coming. Yukito sprints straight for the pillar. Wham! With a savage kick, he slammed his heel into the concrete pillar. Uyama stood there totally clueless. The streetlight groaned, snapping at the base. Showtime. Yukito smirked. The so-called hero finally clocked the danger and realized he was in trouble. Uyama froze, staring up as tons of concrete plummeted straight for his skull. Pure panic. Scanning his blind spot, the top-ranked adventurer spotted a car speeding right at him. Click. He finally grasped Takahashi's twisted game. Checkmate. Yukito watched the chaos unfold like a movie scene, slow clapping as his trap sprung. Every move was calculated. He knew the hero couldn't resist saving the day, ensuring no bystanders would actually get hurt. Uyama caught the falling steel, slamming it into the pavement. Predictable, he scoffed, trying to look cool. But his eyes betrayed him. He was rattled. Takahashi grinned. Oh, you think so? If it was so obvious, then prove it. Save everyone. Whatever the cost, the protagonist taunted, his smile never fading. Uyama's face dropped. The snapped power lines weren't just broken, they were dancing with live voltage. Disaster was imminent. The grid overload threatened a chain reaction that would fry anyone standing nearby. The downed pole hissed spiderweb cracks, glowing with lethal golden arcs of electricity. Zero time to think. Boom! An explosion ripped through the air right behind the adventurer's back. The blonde hero whipped around, sweat dripping down his forehead. He had to move now. The inferno was hungry. Swallowing the street whole, Uyama snapped out of it, screaming for his undines to drown the flames. The water spirits surged forward, obeying their master. Takahashi just watched, totally entertained. He loved seeing the hero scramble. More water, Uyama roared. But the blaze was outpacing him, tearing down the block. Trees caught fire like matchsticks, crashing onto the asphalt and crushing parked cars flat. The road buckled under the intense heat, turning the asphalt into a ticking time bomb. Suddenly, the street collapsed. A massive sinkhole opened up, devouring everything. Uyama finally lost it. You've got to be kidding me, he shrieked. He deployed Sylph and Gnome for damage control. Yukito knew it was his turn to step in. He dashed toward the carnage. The gnome spirit grabbed a civilian girl just as her car slid into the dark abyss. Sylph's wind magic kicked in, levitating the vehicle out of the pit. The spirits were working overtime, saving lives, and salvaging gear from the disaster zone. Takahashi decided to close the distance. He ghosted up behind the adventurer. "Forget someone," he whispered, with that trademark grin. "Not now." Uyama snapped, busy cleaning up Yukito's mess. The #1 hero was convinced that this kid couldn't touch him. Yukito silently opened his system interface. "Time for another shock. Maybe I can't hurt you directly," Yukito announced, "but I can turn the world against you." Bam! He shield bashed Uyama. The hero stumbled, completely blindsided by the cheap shot. The golden armor, the majestic red cape, all of it went flying straight down into the open sewer. Ironic, Takahashi mused. The top dog literally neck-deep in filth. He loved teaching pretty boys what rock bottom felt like. Uyama's face twisted in pure horror as he fell. Realizing there was no coming back from this humiliation, the brown sludge rose to meet him. Splash! The #1 adventurer was shoulder-deep in sewage. Takahashi leveled his flower-decked wand at Uyama. "I'm not finished." That broke him. Uyama threw his hands up. I yield," he admitted defeat. Moments later, the fires died down and every civilian was accounted for. Uyama slumped on a fire truck bumper, dripping wet sewage. He looked at Yukito and confessed, "My arrogance. It keeps getting me into messes like this." He sighed, adding, "I knew fighting you would be tricky, but I didn't expect to get absolutely destroyed." He admitted it was the first time. Karma had hit him this hard. Gone was the boasting. He was genuinely terrified by Takahashi's brain. It reminded him of a dark accident from the past. A flashback hit Yukito, a massive explosion ripping through a skyscraper. The memory shifted, spilled takeout, and a crushed bouquet of flowers scattered on the pavement. Past Yukito was on his knees, hands clasped, praying in total silence. The trauma was agonizing, but it was that exact pain. That gave him the edge to win today. "What matters now?" Takahashi asked, staring down Uyama. "Did I prove I can stop history from repeating itself?" "Deal," the hero confirmed, dusting off his hands with a sharp clap. He hopped off the truck's roof, tossing a casual remark over his shoulder. "I'll let you hang out with her a little longer." Yukito wasn't buying the adventurer's attitude. Without even glancing back, Kasumori warned that the barrier of oblivion was about to collapse. And cleaning up the mess from their duel, that was on Yukito. The blonde speedster was hinting at the massive crater currently scarring the middle of the highway. Uyama gave a lazy wave toward the hero, adding that he needed to head back to the hospital pronto. The adventurer expected the rookie to handle the curse of disaster. But from the blank look on Takahashi's face, the guy didn't have a clue what he was talking about. Seeing the hero's confusion, the adventurer actually looked caught off guard. How could this kid not know that this specific curse was the trigger for the massive tragedy at the hospital? "You're from the future, right? How do you miss intel that big?" Uyama pressed. The hero admitted this was total news to him. That answer made the blonde man smirk weirdly, assuming Yukito was just trolling him. The adventurer snapped that it wasn't a funny joke. But the young man wasn't laughing. Dead serious, he crossed his arms, genuinely baffled. "You really don't know about the disaster?" Kasumori exclaimed, mind completely blown. He couldn't grasp how the guy didn't remember the infernos and the decimated streets. "Look, I spent my entire past life in dungeons. I was grinding slimes for 10 years, the boy finally confessed. Suddenly it clicked. For Uyama, Yukito's memory of the past had some serious gaps. He realized that meant the kid had zero clue how to counter the curse. The hero shrugged helplessly. It was the honest truth. He didn't know the first thing about stopping this catastrophe. The news hit the adventurer hard. He looked down, defeated. He stared at his shoes in silence for a beat. Finally, the blonde man muttered that the clock was ticking too fast to explain everything anyway. Glancing at the shifting color of the sky, he knew the zone was fading. "Hit the morgue. Basement level of the hospital. Once you're there, it'll all make sense," Uyama directed. Yukito, annoyed, asked why he should take orders from him. The adventurer replied that he'd try to figure it out himself, but there was a solid chance he'd fail. As he walked away from Takahashi, he threw back a grim warning. "If you don't act, the body count is going to be massive." Hearing that kind of doom talk from the adventurer left the young man reeling. He wanted to press for answers, but Kasumori had already launched himself into the air, vanishing into the sky. "I have no idea what's going on, but I need to get back to the hospital now," the hero decided. He tapped his bracelet of changeability to warp back to his mom and sister as soon as possible. The kid made it just in the nick of time, as the void started to dissolve around them. When the magic finally lifted, pedestrians were strolling down the street again, completely oblivious that just seconds ago, two titans had been throwing down right there. Yukito slipped back into the hospital unnoticed. No one in the office suspected that he'd even left the room. The doctor was busy advising the boy's mother to come in for routine checkups. Yuki stood up, promising to follow the doctor's orders, beaming with gratitude for the good news. Takahashi smiled internally, pumping his fist that he'd secured the elixir and saved his mom. But the young man discreetly side-eyed the room. The adventurer's warning was still echoing in his head. "No time to explain. I don't even get it myself." That memory triggered a gut feeling the hero couldn't ignore. He had to verify the blonde's warning. He headed for the exit, took a few steps, and gripped the doorknob tightly. All I know is we can't stay here, Takahashi thought. He was certain he had to extract his sister and mother from the building immediately. Once they hit the hallway, Nozomi groaned, "I'm so stressed I could eat a horse." His mom suggested grabbing a bite at a cafe on the way home to celebrate her miraculous recovery, but Yukito shut that down, insisting he'd cook a special dinner for them personally. His sister's jaw dropped, her brother cooking. That was a once-in-a-blue-moon event. The young man flashed a smile. "Why not? I just have one favor to ask. Can you guys hit the grocery store and grab the ingredients without me?" His mother replied that if Yukito was treating them, they couldn't exactly say no. Nozomi was totally on board too. Yuki and her daughter headed for the exit, chatting excitedly about the feast Takahashi was going to whip up. The hero waited patiently, watching his family leave the hospital grounds. Once he was sure they were clear of the danger zone, he made his move toward the morgue. But first, a quick pit stop in the men's restroom. He had to gear up. Locking himself in a stall, Takahashi equipped a white hooded cloak. It wasn't just fabric, it was magic. A sweet drop from the bandit warlord Kido. Yukito usually popped this invisibility cloak to bypass trash mobs that weren't worth the XP. He never guessed he'd be burning a cooldown on it for this. Some random patient in the bathroom watched a stall door swing open on its own and nearly had a heart attack, convinced the place was haunted. While that guy was panicking, Yukito ghosted his way to the elevator at the hall's end. He watched the numbers tick down, wondering how he'd missed the intel on this so-called disaster curse. Uyama claimed the morgue held the answers. Ding! The display hit bone. Basement level. The metal doors slid open, revealing a labyrinth of hallways. Yukito strode out, eyes scanning the gloom. He needed to find the target fast. The silence down here wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. Was this where the catastrophe sparked? Yukito paused. First things first, time for a vibe check to see if anyone else was breathing down here. He pinged his system radar, 0 life signs. Perfect. No witnesses, means he can tear this place apart if he has to. Takahashi scanned the placards on the doors, hunting for the right room. There it was. Morgue. Showtime. He eased the heavy door open without a sound. Pitch black inside. As his vision adjusted, cold tiles and rows of gurneys materialized. Bodies lay silent, draped in stark white sheets. A grim thought hit him. One day that's gonna be me. He prowled past the corpses, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Nothing. At the back of the room, he glanced back at the shrouded figures. He lowered his hood, exposing himself. Just a waiting game now. Still, nothing. Was Uyama trolling him? He pulled up the system interface and his eyes went wide. Flashing crimson text. Red alert. We got problems. A guttural rasp filled the air. A sinister red aura steamed off the gurneys. One sheet slipped, revealing a woman's face twisted in agony. She jerked, spasming violently as she rose. Pure nightmare fuel. In seconds, a dozen corpses were shuffling toward the stunned hero. They growled like beasts, shattering the silence. Okay, Uyama wasn't kidding about the morgue part. Message received. Yukito leveled his blade stance steady, ready to handle business. As the horde closed in, the stench of rotting meat hit him like a physical wall. High-level players usually kite undead from high ground, he analyzed. They snapped and foamed at the mouth like rabid mutts. A long-haired corpse lunged first. This wasn't biology, it was magic. Not a virus, but something darker. Xing 1, clean arc, and her head hit the tiles. Definitely a curse. Her body dropped, but the rest of the pack was already breathing down his neck. He remembered the lore: if a cursed adventurer isn't buried fast enough, they respawn as this trash. He cleaved the next one in half, splitting it from skull to navel. Just as he dropped the second monster, a third one lunged from his blind spot. Yukito's reflexes flared. He planted a brutal front kick into its gut, sending it flying back. The curse was contagious among the dead. In his past life, a cleric would just nuke them with holy light. Too bad nobody in this server has unlocked that skill tree yet. At least it's not airborne, but one bite and it's game over. He grabbed a steel gurney and hurled it at the next monster. Gotta keep distance. He went into a flow state, dismantling them methodically. Another severed head skittered across the floor, sliced clean by Yukito's blade. He kept kicking gurneys into place, using them as barriers against the gnashing teeth. Bang! He pinned another undead against the wall with a bed frame, but the swarm was getting dense. He shoved more beds together, throwing up a makeshift blockade to buy time. He'd thinned the herd, but they were relentless, clawing over the obstacles to get a taste of him. Amid the chaos, he spotted a talisman hanging off a rotting neck. That wasn't just a zombie, that was a high-ranking adventurer. A former legend now reduced to a mindless ghoul. Talk about a tragic fall from grace. Click. The sound of the door handle turning froze the air. Yukito's instinct screamed something on the other side was desperate to get in. Crash. The door gave way, spewing 2 rotting corpses into the room. They stumbled, limbs tangling as they hit the deck. Balance clearly not their strong suit. But numbers were on their side. Surrounded or not, Takahashi hyped himself up, muttering that this would be a cakewalk. Swing, one clean stroke and the first zombie's head went flying, but the second one, still crawling. Yukito raised his blade for the double tap. He was mid-swing when the brake slammed hard in his brain. His HUD flickered. The target wasn't red. It was pulsating, a friendly, neutral green on the system radar. The figure lifted a trembling face, eyes wide with pure terror. "Help me," she rasped. Takahashi froze. She wasn't undead. She was a survivor. Judging by her outfit, she looked like funeral home staff who picked the absolute worst time for a body pickup. Look, once you go full zombie, there's no going back. But a fresh bite. That's a different story. Hope sparked in his mind. He dropped to a knee beside the shivering woman. Before reality checked him, his inventory was looking grim. He didn't have the gear for a cure. Plus, that bed fort wasn't going to hold the horde back forever. It was crunch time and the math wasn't looking good. Logic dictated he should cut his losses and let her turn. Focus on the main threat, right? Takahashi swiped open his system window. Screw logic. I'm not going to be some heartless stat chaser, he decided. Time to bust out the big guns. He triggered the bracelet of change, and the system chimed a confirmation. To pull off this alchemical miracle, he needed a catalyst. Specifically, the patient's own blood. The recipe for the zombie antidote downloaded into his memory. Yeah, he was doing the most, but walking away wasn't in his DNA. A real hero doesn't leave people behind. He grabbed her hand, gentle but firm. With a precise flick of his blade, he nicked her fingertip. A single crimson bead welled up against the cold steel. Perfect. He caught the drop in a mixing flask. Ingredients. Check. Now, for the chemistry. Yukito sat down, swirling the components with surgical focus. Final element added. He held his breath, sweat beading on his forehead, wondering if he just wasted his time. The system pinged crafting sacred elixir of purification. Then, the dreaded red text, warning, alchemy level too low. Success rate, a measly 25%. And without the advanced synthesis skill, he was pushing his luck. The system roasted his low magic stats too. But Yukito had an ace up his sleeve, his insane luck stat. Ding, success. Against all odds, the potion stabilized. Takahashi grinned. Hang in there, almost done. He tilted the vial, letting the glowing liquid trickle past her lips. The reaction was instant. A brilliant aura enveloped her form. Then the light faded, and she slumped forward out cold. Takahashi exhaled the tension, leaving his shoulders. She made it. He propped her up gently, making sure she was stable before turning back to business. He snatched his sword off the floor. Playtime's over. He still had zombies to slay and a celebratory dinner to cook. Priorities right. But something was wrong. The barricade. It stopped shaking. The pressure was gone. He peeked through a gap in the beds. Dead silence. Literally. The hall was empty. But what he saw next sent a chill down his spine. Every single zombie was drifting toward this oozing black sludge like moths to a flame. It was like a hive mind summons. Their skin blackened while their eyes and mouths erupted with a sickly green neon glow. Something massive was feeding on their energy. A dozen corpses melted together, fusing into one colossal nightmare. Razors for teeth, tentacles everywhere. It let out a roar so powerful, the sonic boom blasted Takahashi's barricade apart. What in the actual hell is that, Yukito thought, staring at the abomination. While he was playing pharmacist, the curse had evolved. It clumped the horde together into a super unit. Was this his punishment for playing the hero? The karma for saving one life was facing 1,000 deaths. He could almost hear Uayama Kosamori mocking him. Look at the mess you made, hero. But Yukito smirked. No regrets. He saved the girl, and now he was going to shred this monster too. The beast lashed out tentacles, whipping through the air. But Takahashi, he was already moving reflexes on God mode. The hero weaves through the kill zone, closing the distance in a heartbeat. Shing, one clean stroke and the head rolls. Zombie slaying 1-to-1, gotta take the top off. Suddenly, a tentacle whips past, missed him by an inch. But this freak is a hydra. Yukito starts slicing heads one by one. No breaks. As long as even one ugly mug is snarling, this fight isn't over. 2 more tentacles shoot out, aiming to crush Yukito into paste. Slash. He severs both limbs before they even hit the tiles. Yukito gone. He's moving like a blur, ghosting past the beast and carving through heads with god-tier speed. He's running the playbook from his past life. Pure velocity and surgical precision. The mission is simple. Delete every single head. Total annihilation is the only way to drop this thing for good. The final head flies off. Yukito lands praying that's a wrap. The beast collapses, totally lifeless. Just a mound of dead meat now. Right, the hero holds his breath. Psych. Yukito's jaw hits the floor. The thing starts twitching. It's regenerating. Vile black energy swirls around it. A head snaps back into place, eyes glowing, toxic green. No way. Is this actually happening? Tentacles lash out, snatching up fresh bodies from the floor. The zombie unhinges its massive jaw and shovels the corpses inside. It's straight up nightmare fuel. I'm talking full horror show. 2 human legs are still dangling from its mouth. Blink and 3 new heads burst from its neck. It's fueling up on the dead to auto-repair. A normal undead would be dust by now, but this is a whole different breed of monster. Takahashi realizes the clock is ticking. He has to sever the main head before it respawns the backup crew. But here's the snag, he's a close-quarters fighter. He lacks the ranged attacks needed to nuke this thing from a safe distance. He considers his magic staff, but that's too dangerous. One blast would level the entire hospital. Stall for backup. Nah. No way is he letting that pompous blonde steal his thunder. He ditches the waiting game. There's zero time for a rescue party. The adventurer isn't coming. Yukito has to handle this mess solo. Meanwhile, the fodder zombies are sacrificing themselves to buff the boss. Every corpse consumed pops a new head. It's mutating fast. If he doesn't end this, it's gonna grow into a kaiju. With a feral roar, the beast fires its tentacles at him again. Yukito barely sidesteps the death blow. The strike is so fast it cracks the building. The impact shakes the room, raining plaster from the ceiling. The whole place is falling apart. Takahashi knows he needs a finisher and fast. If this cannibal buffet continues, the monster will become unstoppable. Logic tells him he's in deep trouble. He needs a weapon that wipes the mob in one shot without bringing the roof down. A precision strike, not a bulldozer. He needs balance. But his inventory is empty. Just as panic starts to creep in, a light bulb goes off. Yukito scans the room. Boom! In the corner, an alchemy station. The creature lunges again while he's distracted. Slice. He shears off the grabby limbs. That alchemy kit. It's not just for brewing potions. It's raw material. He can weaponize it. He dives behind a metal bed frame, skidding toward the kit. No weapon, no problem. Build one. His gamer brain kicks into overdrive. Improvise, adapt, overcome. His eyes lock onto the metal table legs. Without hesitation, he slices through the steel pipe. Everything is a weapon if you're creative enough. The system pings 4 stretcher legs acquired. Just then, a massive tentacle obliterates his cover, smashing the bed to pieces. Yukito flashes a savage grin. Damn, you're thirsty. Takahashi doesn't hesitate. He equips the steel plate instantly. Bing, the system logs the new artifact. Shield wall activated. Try being slower and dumber, ugly, our hero taunts. 3 tentacles slash the air, but the kid ducks behind his makeshift aegis just in time. The shield is lightweight but tough, solid defense. Now he needs a counterattack. He dives into the alchemy manual for a recipe. Tanking heavy blows with one hand, Yukito speed reads the grimoire with the other. Jackpot. Black powder. The recipe demands the holy trinity, potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal. Takahashi's face drops. He can't exactly summon a chemistry lab in a dungeon. Normally, he'd just bracelet warp to a convenience store and buy the mats. But a glance at his wrist confirms the worst battery's dead. He's been spamming teleports all day. Adrenaline spikes. He's running for his life when it hits him. If he can't buy him, he'll have to cook him. Eagle eyes spot a cedar block in the corner. That's his charcoal sorted. Step 1, initiate burn. He tosses the lumber straight into the alchemical cauldron. Let's get cooking. System alert. Crafting skill too low. Success probability. A miserable 25%. Never tell him the odds. Yukito's insane luck stat procs again. Boom, high-grade charcoal acquired. 1 down, 2 to go. Brainstorming mode on. Sulfur and potassium nitrate. He's kiting the boss, dodging lethal strikes, racking his brain for a solution. The pressure is insane. He lands a stun on the zombie, buying a split second. Time to consult the oracle of modern knowledge. He literally pulls up ChatGPT mid-fight. Yo, household substitutes for sulfur and nitrate. The AI spits out the answer immediately, common matches. He scans the room. An incense burner catches his eye, which means someone had to light it right. He glances at the unconscious girl. Sorry lady, need to raid your inventory. He grabs her purse. He dumps the loot on the floor. Bingo. A box of matches stares back at him. Into the cauldron they go. He's stripping them down to their chemical base instantly. The system throws another error code about failure rates, but RNGesus is watching. Ingredients extracted successfully. Now for the main event, mixing that unstable black powder to blow this curse sky high. Crafting complete. The powder is ready. Luck strikes again, but powder needs a projectile. He keeps the streak alive, refining a high-quality slug in seconds. Endgame approaching. But how does he fire it? He dives back into the girl's bag. He remembers a notepad. He rips it open and starts sketching furiously. Done. Yukito stares at his drawing. It's crude, but it represents an idea. He's smirking at his genius, but he dropped his guard. The monster recovers and goes aggro. With a feral roar, the zombie lunges, thinking it's finally got the kill. Claws swipe inches from his face. It looks like game over for Yukito. You know what zombies hate most, he asks with a grin. He rips the page out and tosses it into the glowing cauldron. The sketch, a pistol, the delivery system for his black powder death. He opens the UI and feeds a metal wheelchair leg into the mix as raw material. The cauldron roars to life. System warning, blueprint unknown. You can't just 3D print a gun with magic. Metallurgy skill 0. Weapon will be garbage tier. System ignored. Luck stat valid. Out pops a pristine self-firing sawed-off shotgun. Unbelievable. He hates disturbing the dead, but survival comes first. He's got no other choice. He jams the homemade shells into the breech. Takahashi levels the barrel right at the monster's ugly mug. Time to die. Again. He lets the beast close the distance. Point-blank range. The system screams hero class incompatible with firearms. Explosion risk, 30%. But Yukito doesn't do safe bets. He bets it all on black. Trigger pulled. No backfire. Just a thunderous boom as the slug tears through the air straight for the kill. Death was barreling down the pipe, but this abomination, it just stared at the shiny brass, totally clueless that game over was loading. POW. One slug shreds the tentacle guarding its face, but the follow-up, a perfect bullseye. That head turned into mist. Clink. The hot brass casing pinged against the cold floor tiles. But wait, the meat starts knitting itself back together, a glossy eye snapping open. Nope. Yukito feeds it another dose of black powder to shut that healing factor down permanently. Don't even think about it, Takahashi growled. He wasn't letting this freak hit the reset button. Boom. Another blast disintegrates a cluster of heads on the zombie's torso. The guy's relentless spamming the trigger like his life depends on it. This monstrosity is refusing to die, but Yukito, he's the definition of stubborn. He's not clocking out until the job is done. Gripping two sawed-offs like a total badass, he rushed in, unloading pure lead into every ugly mug this thing had. Gunfire thundered through the silent morgue. Blam, another black powder round shears a tentacle right off the bone. Cling clang. Another empty casing dances across the blood-slicked tiles. Yukito squeezes the trigger again, click. Nothing. The system pings him, mag dump complete. You're empty, Chief. But the deed is done. The abomination is finally a heap of defeat at his feet, every single head blown to smithereens. He scanned the carnage, eyes narrowed. Gotta double tap, visually make sure this zombie isn't just playing dead. Takahashi exhaled, hardly believing the boss battle was actually over. Then the blue screen pops up. Congrats, kid. You just deleted the curse of disaster. A world first clear. Yukito just bagged the legendary title Sacred Slayer. He stood there, letting the achievement sink in. That feeling, pure victory. Finally, this nightmare is cancelled. It's over, he thought, feeling the adrenaline dump. But the morgue's dead silence is broken by a soft weeping. It's the girl he saved totally forgot she was there in the heat of battle. But hey, looks like his DIY antidote did the trick. Suddenly the victory high crashes. Yukito realizes he's got a massive problem on his hands. He's not on the hospital payroll. He's drenched in monster fluids. And oh yeah, he's holding 2 illegal sawed-off shotguns. How do you explain this? Sup, I'm the guy who came back from the dead. Yeah, nobody's buying that story. Plus, he's in a restricted staff-only zone. That's a straight-up felony trespassing charge waiting to happen. Takahashi froze. He realized he might have beaten the monster, but now he has to beat the law. One wrong move, and he's totally busted. Plus, in their reality, getting caught strapped with a piece outside the dungeon is a massive violation. The crushing weight of that liability nearly flattened our hero, but then a spark of genius hit him. He remembered he'd ghosted his way into this basement using his invisibility cloak, and it was high time to vanish again. The second the guy threw the cloak over his shoulders, voices erupted from the hallway. A helmeted guard barked orders at his squad. Fire up the scanners, sweep the perimeter, we've got a rat in here. Absolute disaster, the hero thought, panic rising. He glanced down at his wrist, his invisibility bracelet was completely drained. His stealth stats were looking tragic right now. The blinking red light on the artifact screamed, low battery. Takahashi triggered the bracelet on a prayer, begging the magic tech to squeeze out one last charge and warp him out of this mess. He just needed his insane luck stat to come in clutch one more time. But nope, nothing happened. Was his lucky streak finally over? This run wasn't exactly going according to plan. Suddenly, the morgue doors crashed open and 2 knights stormed inside. They were brandishing spears, followed by 4 others, hauling a massive, heavy palanquin on their shoulders. A silver-haired girl dressed in pristine white sat on the throne letting out a massive bored yawn. The 4 knights were acting as human furniture for her. The hero clocked these uninvited guests instantly. It was the church squad. The point man leveled his blade at the hero and announced, Lady Naomi, we have a suspicious target in the room. Without even looking up from her smartphone screen, she asked if the guy was an enemy of the Almighty. The knight admitted he had no clue, but the stranger was definitely giving off shady vibes. With a touch of melancholy, Naomi, the clergy's rep, drawled out, is that right? She casually tossed her phone to a subordinate named Reed, commanding him to grind the rest of the game level for her. Naomi finally forced herself to slide off her plush mobile throne. Once her feet hit the floor, she clasped her hands in prayer. O Kingdom of Heaven, bless your servant with epic loot, I mean trophies. And please don't let me get deleted by some trash-tier donors. The cleric wrapped up her prayer with zero chill. She strutted past her armored escorts while the hero stood frozen. Patiently waiting to see how this cutscene would play out, Naomi was pretty petite. She walked right up to Yukito, tilted her head back, and asked if he was beefing with God. But before he could even speak, she cut in. Nah, you probably smoked these zombies yourself. But the pint-sized minister was curious how a random stranger knew that the undead were going to spawn inside the hospital morgue. She quickly deduced that this guy definitely wasn't on the hospital payroll. Naomi was genuinely shook that someone had a better radar for the undead than she did. She couldn't believe that was even possible. The hero looked totally lost he hadn't cooked up a cover story. Yet, suddenly a voice boomed out. I sensed the incoming threat and deployed him to the morgue myself. Like he just spawned out of thin air, Uyama Kosumarito stepped into the room. Naomi gasped. No way, it's the top-tier hero. The girl and her crew immediately bowed to the adventurer. I've been handling incidents across the city, but since I can't clone myself, I asked this rookie to cover for me, Uyama explained, shooting a sly wink at Yukito. Wait, so you commissioned him? The church minister asked, looking a bit puzzled. Then she turned to Takahashi. Well, if you're cool with the hero, I guess you're not sus. Naomi glanced at the young man and added that his karma stats were actually pretty low. The hero blinked, totally caught off guard by that terminology. The beauty doubled down on her statement, clearly loving the confusion she caused. I can view people's sins, good vibes, and bad deeds as digital stats, Naomi explained with a sweet smile. Uyama Kosumarito laughed, yelling, that's exactly what you'd expect from the church's youngest prodigy, so she's got a broken skill tied to a specific class. The hero realized internally. Naomi actually blushed a little at the adventurer's hype. Then she pivoted, will this guy be joining the holy raid? She was obviously talking about Takahashi. It seemed her question put the adventurer in a tight spot. He didn't have a dialogue option ready. Naomi and Yukito both stared at him, waiting for the answer. Uyama finally rebooted his brain and validated Naomi's theory with his signature energy. He pointed a finger at Yukito and, talking to the cleric, claimed the kid would be a massive asset. He's gonna scrub the temple walls of all evil and drop some divine grace, Uyama shouted, with way too much passion. Naomi turned to Takahashi. If the #1 hero vouches for you, you're rolling with me. She added that she really didn't care who her minions were, as long as they have utility. Unbelievable. Hey, is anyone gonna ask what I think? Or am I just furniture here? The hero snapped, his patience wearing thin. The adventurer scrambled to diffuse the tension, laughing it off. Haha, ignore him. Yukito's such a kidder, he lied through his teeth. Then his voice dropped to a lethal whisper. Sighed. Now, we need to chat. They dragged themselves to a desolate corner, putting some much-needed distance between them and the church bigwigs. Sorry, mind, keeping an eye on her for a sec, Takahashi muttered. The other guy cut straight to the chase. You know about the temple class change, right? The hero nodded. But he wasn't budging an inch, serving some chick named Naomi hard pass. Listen, the class change is a game changer for people like us. Whether you want to max out your stats or swap builds entirely, the temple is the only way to make it happen. In my last run, I failed, the adventurer confessed, his voice heavy with regret. A disaster wiped the temple out and I couldn't stop it. Dark memories flooded the blonde's mind like a broken dam. He saw it vividly, a terrified acolyte crumpled on the floor, drenched in crimson as the sanctuary collapsed. Without the temple, the adventurers grew weak, while the enemy just kept getting stronger. Yukito scoffed. If you've got the script, fix it yourself. The adventurer looked pained. Believe me, I would in a heartbeat. But I can't be everywhere at once. There are threats out there I have to neutralize if we want any shot at a peaceful future. He pleaded his case, but Takahashi wasn't buying what he was selling. As far as he was concerned, this wasn't his drama. Uyama switched tactics. Think about the endgame. Hooking up with the church gets you deeper into the dungeons. We're talking instant floor teleportation and bypassing high-level barriers like they're nothing. They've cornered the market on healers and supports. Plus, they can erect barriers that are practically impenetrable. And don't forget, their officials can warp adventurers between floors. It's the ultimate fast track. Fine, you win, the hero sighed, finally caving. The adventurer blinked, stunned that he actually got a yes. But before he could celebrate, Takahashi snatched Uyama by his collar. If he was doing this, he wanted an unbreakable vow. You don't touch my family, ever. I swear I have zero intention of harming anyone. Who has value to this world, Kosumarito promised, throwing his hands up in surrender. The hero narrowed his eyes, catching the implication. So, the second I'm useless, I'm trash to be taken out. The adventurer shook his head. You make it sound like a threat, but I'm just asking for a favor. Takahashi released him, demanding the fine print, before he signed his life away. But just as the adventurer opened his mouth to spill the beans, Naomi rolled up, asking if their little powwow was finished. The blonde plastered on a $1,000,000 smile. So sorry to keep you waiting, my lady. She shrugged it off cold. It's fine. We were busy scrubbing the filth from this place anyway. Then without a word, Naomi raised her staff, aiming it dead at the hero. A pulse of magic washed over Yukito, erasing every speck of dirt and grime from the fight. In seconds, he looked fresh out of the laundry. The petite cleric hopped into her ride, announcing it was time to hit the nearest temple. The hero stood there blinking in confusion. Wait, why are we going there? Naomi snatched her phone from a knight, not even looking up as she explained that they needed to audit his skills. I'm not hiring dead weight. If you can't fight, you're useless, she said, scrolling through her feed. Two knights instantly leveled their spears at him. Great, no choice then. Yeah, test him out, I gotta bounce. Good luck, buddy, Uyama Kosumarito shouted, vanishing into thin air. The hero realized that the slime ball had totally set him up and bailed. Guest lunch is off the table, Yukito groaned, as they dragged him out of the hospital basement. A short trip later, the church loomed ahead. Flanked by Naomi and her goons, they stepped inside. The place was massive, way bigger than the exterior suggested. Classic spatial magic. Yukito finally stopped rubbernecking, trying to take it all in. The girl wasted no time. Let the trial begin. Your opponent is just an average knight, she said, pointing to some random guy in the ranks. The warrior stepped forward, radiating menace. A fourth-degree knight. He unsheathed his blade with a metallic hiss. Takahashi locked onto his target. One glance told him everything this guy's level was way above his own. Naomi shouted, "Begin," and they collided. As they fought, the girl casually popped open a bag of snacks, treating this life-or-death duel like a movie. But her eyes were sharp, dissecting Yukito's every micro-movement. Clang. Their blades met with bone-jarring force, showering the room in sparks. The knight pressed the attack, but the hero held the line. His swordplay is sloppy, Yukito noted internally. He realized these church warriors pumped all their stats into defense. But even so, that level gap is going to be a problem. He's fighting sloppy, Takahashi analyzed, unimpressed. Naomi liked the show, but she wasn't about to let this stay a fair fight. Time to give the rookie a little taste of divine intervention. She slammed her staff down, hacking the reality of the duel. Strange arcane words spilled from her lips. Heraclea Axelor. The air vibrated. It felt like she was pinging a server for a high-level entity. The priestess struck the floor, and the code of the world shifted. A crimson aura exploded around the hero's opponent, locking him in a power-up animation. Naomi just juiced his stats to the max. Yukito gritted his teeth seriously. Can a guy catch a break for one day? The Holy Knight blitzed forward, moving with unnatural glitch-like speed. The kid clocked the change instantly. Blocking the heavy strikes felt like trying to stop a freight train. Takahashi glared at the girl. She was enjoying this way too much. Total cheese strategy. Church tanks already have insane defense stats. Now she's buffing him. The hero felt a spike of desperation. Yukito knew the math with those strength buffs active. A battle of attrition was a one-way ticket to the graveyard. But quitting wasn't in his skill tree. He scanned the enemy's armor like a blueprint, hunting for a texture error or a weak joint. His focus paid off. His eyes locked onto a hairline fracture in the church warrior's metal gauntlet. In a split second, he realized the knight's gear was flashy, but the durability on that hand was critically low. Takahashi saw his win condition. He raised his shield, turtling up, but his mind was already 3 moves ahead. He wouldn't waste this opening. His hand quietly palmed a jagged piece of metal, slag useless trash from a smelting floor. But in the hands of a pro, it was a lethal projectile. This piece of junk was about to become the MVP. While the boy played defensive, the enchanted knight launched himself into the air, looking for a plunging critical hit. He raised his blade high, charging up a devastating holy hammer strike to squash Yukito flat. But the hero wasn't staying grounded. He triggered his own skill. Kicking off the floor, he met the knight in midair. He activated Bee Sting. The counterattack was so fast, the warrior's buffed reflexes couldn't even register it. A tiny scrap of metal just became an armor-piercing bullet. It slammed into the gauntlet's weak point, shattering the armor instantly. Takahashi followed up with a brutal shield bash, connecting hard. The knight's hand crumpled, his fingers failing, and the sword slipped from his grasp. Disarmed and defeated, the man plummeted. But the sword didn't hit the floor. Yukito snatched it out of the air. The warrior was beaten by his own blade. Flawless victory. Takahashi felt a rush of satisfaction. He proved he could handle a rigged game and still come out on top. He glanced at Naomi, asking if she wanted round 2. The priestess started slow clapping, clearly entertained. That's enough, she smirked. You're actually a decent swordsman, kid. The hero nodded, thanks, looking wiped out. He tossed the sword back to its owner, his brain still dissecting the fight data. I'm not OP yet, Takahashi realized. These church guys are just crutched by their buffs. Take those away, they're nothing. Naomi was already back to grinding her mobile game. You're dismissed. Catch you later. Takahashi stared at her, but she had already ghosted him in real life. He didn't need a written invitation. The guy spun on his heel and walked out. Yukito sprinted home. Family dinner was waiting. Tonight was massive. They were celebrating his mom's miraculous recovery. An hour later, the feast was served. The vibe in the room was pure, wholesome energy. Nozomi and Yuki had bowls full of golden perfect porridge, but the third bowl, it looked like charcoal. Bon appetit, the young man beamed. He acted like he didn't notice his dinner was burnt to a crisp. Nozomi looked horrified, clutching her head. As her brother reached for the blackened mess, Yuki nudged her daughter, just eat. He worked so hard on this. The hero smiled, watching them enjoy the meal. Mom is finally healthy. This is real. I fixed the mistakes of my past life, he thought, feeling warm. We're financially set, Nozomi. Go live your best life, he said, proud of the stability he built. But deep down, the anxiety lingered. The hero is a ticking time bomb. If he breaks his promise, I have to be the one to stop him. I need to be stronger than him to protect my sister. He shoveled the burnt rice into his mouth. Nozomi tried to swap bowls, but he insisted the charcoal flavor was gourmet. As long as that Kazumori guy is breathing down my neck, I can't relax. I need to handle this church business as soon as possible, Yukito decided, swallowing the bitter food. Back at HQ, Naomi was alone in the dark, thumbs flying across her screen. She posted to a public forum, "The kingdom of God is open. Repent, sinners." Instantly, the comments section turned into a dumpster fire. One user spammed scam links. Another started arguing about the flat earth theory. Just another day on the internet. Pathetic. The comment section is a dumpster fire. One user claims human rights activists have no souls, ergo, God is dead. Typical edgelord logic. Naomi stares at the screen face, twisting in confusion. She's reading these threads, but the Gen Z slang is like a foreign language to her. She catches herself typing a sermon to trolls who haven't touched grass in years. She tells the chat to find Jesus to reconcile with the divine, within their own hearts. But suddenly the high priestess realizes the hard truth. These people don't actually want faith. They want receipts. They won't believe until they see a miracle in 4K resolution with their own eyes. Naomi sighs internally. The church teaches that obsessing over worldly drama destroys your karma. Yet here she is, doom-scrolling and drowning in the digital toxic waste of the internet. Talk about hypocrisy. Hours melt away while she's glued to the screen, and before she knows it, shadows are stretching across the city skyline. Finally, Naomi snaps. Her patience hits zero, and she yeets the phone across the table with full force. Bang. The silence is broken by a knock. A muffled voice comes from the hallway. "Your Holiness, permission to enter." Enter, she commands, locking eyes with the door. 4 armored figures march into the office, the air instantly getting heavier. They mutter apologies for the interruption, shuffling toward her desk like guilty schoolboys. Naomi feels the tension rising. "What is it?" she demands. The lead knight drops to one knee, armor clanking. "We need to discuss the upcoming raid strategy." Naomi blinks, surprised. "Is there a problem?" The knight's visor hides his face, but his voice drips with irritation. "We absolutely refuse to let that adventurer join our expedition. The guards have seen the guy's stats, specifically his chaotic karma, and they think he's a walking death flag for the whole squad." Naomi rubs her temples wearily. Honest truth, she couldn't care less. She rests her hand on the Bible, grounding herself. All she wants is to level up her faith and purify her soul. But then she remembers her job description, temple leader equals glorified conflict mediator. There's no escaping the drama. One of the knights keeps rambling, insisting that teaming up with adventurers is a recipe for disaster. Naomi sighs, sliding her monocle onto her face. Time to put on the boss mask. The temple ran the analytics. She lies smoothly. Parties with high reputation stats have better survival rates. It is simply a numbers game. Naomi shuts her desk drawer with a decisive click. Furthermore, we've implemented a hidden metric, the karma system. The strength of the dark forces scales based on our purity. That strikes a chord. One soldier fist pumps, shouting, "Exactly. That is why only we, the righteous servants of God, with maxed out karma, should fight." Naomi cuts in reminding them that the hero himself warned against relying solely on stat sheets. Slam. The armored knight brings his fist down on the mahogany table. Naomi flinches, looking at him with genuine alarm. This guy is unhinged. He views all adventurers as trash mobs and sees himself as the main character of righteousness. "Who is more worthy to save the world?" the angry knight barks. "Us or them? Those adventurers are nothing but criminals." He shoves a stack of papers under Naomi's nose, trying to prove his point. Naomi decides to play 4D chess. She nods slowly, telling the knight he has a point to de-escalate the situation. However, she pivots. "I have already signed a contract with that adventurer. My word is my bond." Naomi's voice is steel. She isn't backing down. But the knight is relentless, looking for a loophole. "You promised to hire him, yes. But you never promised we had to fight alongside him, did you?" Naomi instantly catches his drift. She feigns agreement to keep the peace. "Very well. I promise that the adventurers will not participate in the main holy battle. I will personally do everything in my power to purge the temple of evil and corruption." She adds, her face a mask of calm. The answer satisfies the knights. They drop to their knees, praising her wisdom. Finally, the door clicks shut. Naomi is alone again. Out in the hallway, the knights are high-fiving, thrilled. that their mistress listened to reason. But the leader smirks to himself. She's just a child with zero political savvy. So easy to manipulate. He's high on his own ego, convinced he just played the saintess like a fiddle. He turns to his squad, preaching that they are the true shield of the innocent. But internally, he's plotting. Can't let that adventurer steal our glory. He tells the others, Naomi is the future. But he doesn't believe a word of it. He only wants one thing: to secure more funding and subsidies from the temple treasury. 4 gauntlets punch the air. For the glory of God, they chant. Outside, the contrast is jarring. The city is breathtaking, with cherry blossoms dancing between futuristic glass skyscrapers, pink petals swirling in the wind, oblivious to the corruption inside. Takahashi Yukito stomped down the street, eyes glued to his phone screen. The guy was totally spiraling. He didn't even have time to breathe before the big showdown day hit. The hero was stressing hard because he hadn't linked up with Naomi to talk strategy. He'd shot her a message but only got a cold text back. My subordinates will brief you on battle day. He tried to push back, but she basically ghosted him. The young man dwelled on the heavy title of leader of adventurers. He was carrying the weight of the whole squad. Lost in the sauce of his own anxiety, Yukito didn't even realize he'd walked right up to the adventurers' HQ. Next thing he knew, he was standing inside the Tokyo Dungeon Level 1, the indelible trace. The first face Takahashi saw was Naomi, the clergy rep. He kept it professional with a greeting, and she gave him the bare minimum, a tiny nod. The hero scanned the church representative's face, trying to get a read on her vibe. But the real red flag, 4 Knights of Honor, lurking behind her, whispering like mean girls. Catching them side-eyeing him, Yukito got a knot in his stomach. Something about this setup felt strictly wrong. He drifted away from the church crew and walked up to the adventurer squad. Chin down, Takahashi addressed them, keeping it humble. You guys are probably salty that some rando took over as leader. My bad. He figured all these vets had been on the temple payroll forever, unlike him, the new guy. One dude stepped up telling him to chill out. The rest of the crew nodded in agreement, because Takahashi was handpicked by the hero himself, and you don't argue with that logic. Hearing that, Yukito's jaw hit the floor. Another guy from the group spilled the tea. If it weren't for the hero, they'd all be rotting in a prison cell right now. It clicked for Yukito that flashy blonde was playing the role of a textbook savior perfectly. The image of Kosumariyota in shining armor flashed in his mind, looking heroic. Sorry, but can you give me a hand? Yeah, sure. Yukito recalled that first adventurer's words, realizing the guy had actually just dumped all the grunt work on him. Suddenly, Naomi's voice sliced through the noise. Squad's all here. Let's start the sacred mission. We're heading to the 30th floor. A few moments later, the whole crew arrived at the destination, the church. These guys built temples on every single underground level. They were designated safe zones. You could buy buffs and services there. For a massive donation, of course. But the floor 1 temple looked like a total ghost town. Which makes sense, because who needs a priest 5 minutes into the dungeon? The hero watched the scene unfold inside the temple. With intense curiosity, everyone stepped onto the central pentagram and poof, gone in a flash of magic. Mass teleportation. That's an insane way to travel. One of the knights took point, cracking the heavy doors open. Yukito kept his eyes peeled, memorizing every single detail. Stepping outside, the sky was ablaze with something that looked exactly like the aurora borealis. Welcome to the Tokyo underground floor, 30, the endless polar night. The only light came from that eerie, northern glow. Yukito racked his brain on the lore for this level. Barely any monsters, zero loot. Weirdly enough, the Tokyo underground doesn't even spawn a boss here. That's why. Most squads just speedrun through it to the next floor. The hero mused on how adventurers back in his day totally ignored the 30th floor's existence. Takahashi walked up to Naomi to ask for the game plan. The priestess dropped the bomb. Their job was to wipe out the demons inside the temple walls. Then came the kicker. She ordered the adventurers to wait outside until the raid was over. The young man was blindsided and totally stunned by Naomi's command. The adventurers looked at each other confused. One of Christ's knights told them not to take it personal. Another sneered that with their bad karma stats, it would be too risky for them to fight demons. They were straight up mocking the adventurers, enjoying their little power trip. Yukito's mind raced, trying to calculate his next move. The young man remembered the hero warning him about exactly this. Ueyama Kosumariyota had said karma is a garbage stat. The blonde explained there were a million ways to tank your score. He was convinced that the hypocrites running the temple were gaming the system to their advantage. The superhero believed the knights were just manipulating Naomi for their own shady agenda. Yukito's advice back then, just kill them all. Just when it looks like the dust has settled, Kosu Morito drops a truth bomb. You wipe out everyone in the temple instantly. Yeah, that's going to trigger a massive panic. Cut to the gloom of the dungeon. It feels like a morgue. Our hero is clutching his head, completely spiraling over the nightmare scenario, closing in on them. He decides to push back, getting right in Naomi's face. Listen, we're adventurers. We answer to the guild, and we don't just walk away from a job. He knows they can't just half-ass this mission. One careless move and their professional reputation is toast. The rest of the squad nods in agreement, but the knights cut in ice cold. Your opinions are irrelevant. You follow Lady Naomi's orders. She'll tell the guild you did your duty 100%. You get your paycheck, you walk away. End of story. Got a problem with that? Feel free to leave, the Crusader sneers, shoving a slip of paper into Yukito's chest. Yukito drips with sarcasm. Wow, full pay for zero work. The temple is just too generous. He forces a smile, gripping the paper, but inside he is absolutely fuming. It clicks for him right then. To these holy types, adventurers are just disposable muscle. Cheap mercenaries with zero authority to speak. A knight turns to Naomi, eyes blazing with fanaticism. It's time. The holy war starts now. He is convinced that by uniting, they can crush God's enemies. Naomi looks rattled, trembling under the pressure, totally torn on what to do next. Finally, she chokes out two words: we'll go. The adventurers just stand there dumbfounded, watching the clergy march into the temple. One guy breaks the silence, asking the squad, "So, what's the play?" His buddy scoffs. "What is there to think about? We got paid. We're done." A girl frowns, feeling sketchy about the free handout, but Takahashi is already 10 steps ahead in his head. I know how this movie ends, he thinks. These self-righteous idiots are walking into a slaughter. He debates rallying the adventurers for a rescue mission. Yukito looks up to the sky, maybe hoping for a divine sign. Instead, his mind flashes to the smug face of that blonde jerk Kosu Morito. Seeing that face against the backdrop of the northern lights just ticks him off. Meanwhile, as Naomi nears the inner sanctum, her fear melts away. Her expression locks into pure determination. The holy squad steps inside and the heavy doors slam shut behind them with a final thud. Naomi takes point but suddenly freezes in her tracks. What she sees ahead is absolutely insane. There is a massive pedestal holding a statue of a woman, legs bound in shadowy black chains, and surrounding it, a horde of demons all kneeling in worship. The beasts are too focused to notice the intruders at first, but a split second later, the gargoyles, werewolves, and demons stiffen. Slowly they swivel their heads toward Naomi. It is creepy. They aren't rushing her. They are just staring. Naomi's mind flashes back to the moment they first set foot on this dungeon floor. She had thought the area was clear, but her knights eager for glory hadn't waited for orders, they just charged. Target's back is turned, take it out before it spots us. Screaming prayers and brandishing steel, the knights blitz the creature in the name of God. Back in the present, the vibe shifts instantly. The air gets heavy, suffocating with demonic aura pulsing from that statue. The statue's face starts to warp. Where the mouth should be, a pitch-black void rips open. It is like something trapped inside is clawing to get out. That deity is basically a container for pure, raw evil. The knights skid to a halt, paralyzed. They never expected to face a literal nemesis of God down here. Their theology is crashing. Pure souls shouldn't attract this kind of darkness. They realize there is only one explanation. Someone in the squad has dirty karma. Behind one of those helmets is a liar who hasn't been straight with the crew. This guy has been dipping into the funds, telling himself it is fine because money is evil anyway, right? And gifts, can't refuse those. Like that premium melon he scored for dominating a gluttony contest. He preaches against adultery, but treats marriage like a revolving door. Divorce, remarry, repeat, totally normal in his book. He knows if Saint Naomi ever saw his true colors, he would be finished. He figures his brothers are just as fake as he is. After all, he breaks commandments like he is checking off a grocery list. His karma tanked ages ago, but he figured, what's one more sin? Suddenly, Naomi's voice cuts through his guilt trip. That means the hero was right, she whispers. And with that, every demon in the hall locks eyes on the holy squad. Bam! Naomi slams her staff against the stone floor, snapping everyone to attention. We'll figure out which one of you is the sinner later. Right now, eyes on the enemy. The knights snap out of it. She is right. Survival first, confession later. With Lady Naomi on our side, we can't lose. The warriors scream, hyping themselves up. And with a roar, they charge headfirst into battle. Naomi squeezed her eyes shut, locking into a deep prayer to force her holy power through the suffocating demonic aura. A knight charged the green goblin first, but instantly regretted it, as a crushing magical pressure flattened him. Hovering ominously above was the dark mage weaving spells to shield his minion. It finally clicked for the holy squad. These weren't your average dungeon trash. The team realized they were dealing with a whole different breed of beast compared to anything they'd fought before. Don't lose your heads, Naomi commanded. These things belong on the 30th floor. And we've already conquered the 40th. We got this. Her words acted like a shot of adrenaline to the troops. Emerald light erupted from the saint's staff, bathing the knights in holy buffs, gripping their hilts tight. They felt invincible, convinced they could steamroll these freaks. Powered up and hyped, the squad launched a counterattack. But the enemy wasn't playing around. The stone idol began to crack and splinter, leaking pure crimson malice from within. Instantly, the monsters fed off their master's chaotic aura. Red lightning crackled, wrapping the beasts in dark magic. A massive orc seized the moment, bulldozing forward. and smashed his weapon straight into a knight's skull. The balance of power shifted instantly. The holy squad was totally outclassed. Morale hit absolute zero. They were witnessing a nightmare they couldn't even comprehend. Naomi's mind spiraled. Every soul I save buffs my divine essence, she calculated frantically, staring death in the face. Wait, does leveling up apply to monsters too? Suddenly, two beasts double-teamed a warrior, forcing him back against the cold stone wall. A wolf lunged first, shredding the knight's arm with razor-sharp fangs. Naomi watched in horror, eyes wide with terror as another subordinate got snatched up by a hulking orc. They're baiting me, Naomi realized, panic setting in. They're trying to bleed my mana dry. The knights were mentally checking out, realizing this was a fight they absolutely couldn't win. The staff's holy glow flickered and faded, choked out by the shadows. Meanwhile, the enemy just kept getting stronger, tapping into some infinite well of demonic juice. The idol's eyes blazed, spewing dark mana like black bile. It hit Naomi like a ton of bricks. The monster was feeding on their fear, amplifying every doubt. She squeezed her eyes shut, using prayer to lock down her spiraling emotions. Snapping her eyes open, she glared at the beast with grim clarity. Victory was going to require a sacrifice. I'm turning this battlefield into a holy altar, she screamed. I'm casting atonement. Clear a path to the statue now. I'll drain every drop of my life force if I have to. Naomi was all in, no turning back. She crouched, waiting for an opening as the knights scrambled to execute her command. Show these heathens the power of faith, the men roared, swinging wild. The monsters just waited, glowing with that sinister red aura. First line of defense, the werewolves. /A visor marked with the Holy Cross was instantly painted red. But it wasn't monster blood. A giant had crushed a brother flat. The squad froze, paralyzed, watching in horror as the werewolf eyes burning with hellfire dripped holy blood from its jaws. That was the breaking point. The clergy shattered mentally, while Naomi felt her strength evaporating. Her guards broke formation and ran. The saint tried to scream orders, but nobody was listening. They were already clawing at the temple doors, desperate to escape. Naomi pleaded for them to stop, but a knight snapped back. God can't save us now. Then the cold reality hit. They were trapped. The doors were sealed tight. Naomi stared at her own men, stunned. How could they abandon their faith so fast? Her hands shook violently around her staff. It made no sense, grown men crumbling in fear, while she, a literal child, was ready to die for the cause. Abandoned and surrounded, Naomi had to be real with herself. She didn't want to die for nothing. Outside the temple, a mob of adventurers was just chilling on the street. While everyone else gossiped, our hero was fighting a battle with his own conscience. No mind games, just straight facts, Yukito decided. He turned to the crowd. Listen up, guys. I know we finished the quest, but we need to go back in there and sweep that temple for the saint's sake. Yukito was out of options. He dropped the bomb on them. There was zero time to run back to the guild. No paperwork, no official cleanup crew. He looked them dead in the eye and asked them to handle this as a personal favor. The silence was deafening until one dude broke it. If the hero picked you, you're the real deal. No cap. But another bro wasn't buying it. Why stick their necks out for these self-righteous, holier-than-thou types? Yukito shrugged it off. I don't care about them, but look, Uyama wouldn't send me into this mess for nothing. It was a total bluff, but Takahashi played the manipulation game like a master. Dropping Kosu Moraito's name hit a nerve. Then he played the ace, the innocent kid caught in the crossfire. That did it. The mental image of a terrified, confused Naomi flashed through every adventurer's mind. Yukito went all in, painting the knights as total scumbags and swearing to the guild members that the holy child was in grave danger. He landed the emotional hook perfectly. If the big guy himself sent you, we're riding with you, one guy grinned, stepping up. The redhead chimed in, I couldn't care less about those paladins, but I'm not letting a little girl get hurt. Yukito blinked, stunned. He didn't expect them to be down to fight so fast. Thanks, guys. Seriously. Zero hesitation now. The squad of desperate misfits charged straight for the sealed temple gates. They had no clue what kind of nightmare fuel was waiting for them inside. Takahashi glanced back, thinking, crazy. Nobody bailed. The hero's clout actually saved my skin. He laid a hand on the cold wood. Instantly, a wave of pure malice and despair washed over him. You guys ready? He asked, grip tightening. The door was still shut, but cold sweat was already dripping down his face. Thick demonic energy leaked through the cracks like toxic gas. This was bad. Really bad. One guy shivered. Doors shut, but that killing intent, it's suffocating out here. Screw this, another muttered. No amount of gold is worth dying for. Two of them turned and bolted. One girl watched them run, caught between loyalty and terror. She hesitated for a split second. Sorry, she yelped, sprinting after her friends who were already putting distance between themselves and that cursed temple. Just like that, 50% of his squad vanished before the fight even started. Yukito scanned the survivors. Takahashi hesitated. Would these last four stick around, or was he about to go solo? He touched the door again. He couldn't blame them. Then the memory of his sister Nozomi hit him. If it wasn't for my fear for my sister, I'd be running too, he admitted to himself. Suddenly, a heavy hand landed on his shoulder. Lead the way, boss. One of the remaining guys flashed a genuine gritty smile. The redhead cracked her knuckles. Let's catch a dub. That hype was all he needed. Boom, the temple doors swung open. The Knights of Christ stumbled back, shocked. Yukito planted his boot firmly in their path to salvation. Looks like you boys are struggling. Naomi, having accepted her doom, snapped her head up at the familiar voice. Takahashi smirked, radiating main character energy. The wicked have arrived to save the day. The saint's jaw dropped. She never guessed her saviors would be a bunch of scrappy adventurers. The knight under Yukito's boot snarled, filthy sinners, you can't pass. The holy warriors were convinced that these chaotic newcomers would just feed the enemy's power. Yukito pointed at the statue. That thing, that's the bad guy. One paladin tried to fight back, glaring daggers at the adventurer squad. He focused on one of the men. You, he spat, a thief. He turned to the redhead. And you, a former courtesan. Takahashi braced himself. This priest was digging up the skeletons in everyone's closets, seeing right into their souls. Yukito snapped. Shut your dirty mouth, you hypocrite. If God only loves the perfect, why did Christ pick a tax collector? Why did Shinran preach that sinners are the ones getting saved? He wasn't just talking to the knights. His words hit Naomi like a physical blow. The knights froze, minds blown by the logic. Takahashi stood tall, fully owning his leader role now. His speech lit a fire under his team. We're living proof. Yukito declared that you can restart your life whenever you want. Watch us. Watch how sinners fight while stumbling and getting back up, again and again. Naomi stayed silent, unable to argue. She couldn't take her eyes off this chaotic, beautiful mess of a team. Death breathed down her neck, but Yukito blitzed the gap. With a single surgical slash of his blade, the werewolf crumpled into a heap. Save the chit-chat for the victory lap, the young swordsman barked. Survival was the only quest objective right now. The raid leader slammed his staff down, and instantly, a massive explosion rocked the temple foundation. The mobs were totally blindsided. Naomi raised a vial of glowing blue mana potion and chugged the entire thing. The church warden shouted over the chaos. These monsters have stats way higher than floor 40. Magic items are useless against them. The hero realized they had to stop kiting and brawl with these enemies head on. Powered up by the arcane elixir, Naomi triggered a massive buff for the squad. And just in time, because crimson demonic miasma was flooding every corner of the temple. The green goblins snarled, locking onto the adventurers, charging in with weapons drawn. The duo sprinted shoulder to shoulder, syncing their rhythm. Another fighter launched a triple sword barrage straight at the horde. One blade landed a critical hit, piercing the green giant's eye. Simultaneously, a teammate flanked from the rear, taking down another werewolf with a stealth kill. Takahashi thought to himself, Naomi is absolutely carrying us with these supports. If the hero's original strat had worked, this dungeon clear would be a breeze. He kept calculating the odds, but their party size had been slashed in half. Could they actually clutch this win? Yukito turned to the survivors, admitting the mob density was too high. Anyone got a game plan to wipe them out, Naomi shouted back. That she was triggering atonement on the statue. The raid leader froze, realizing exactly what that meant. He shot a terrified look at the healer. Atonement isn't just a spell. It's the Holy Maiden's ultimate ability. It burns raw life force into mana, to literally delete the enemy from existence. But the cost of one-shotting a boss like this is absolute. Casting that spell deletes the Holy Maiden's life bar too. It's a suicide move. The info hit Yukito like a truck. Miss Naomi, are you seriously gonna go through with this? She didn't flinch. I've always been ready to trade my life to purge evil. No wonder people called this kid a living saint. She was genuinely prepared to be the sacrifice. Takahashi roared at the knights. If we keep 1v1ing these guys, we're gonna wipe. We need to tank the damage and clear a lane for the Holy Maiden. They had to escort her to the statue. Suddenly Naomi got swarmed, but the boys locked in. The demon boss realized the threat and tried to intercept. The dark god buffed his minions again, desperate to shield himself from the Holy Virgin's nuke. The adventuress clutched her pentagram, pouring everything into the assist. Naomi was radiating blinding golden light. Behind her, a knight stood guard like a human fortress. Takahashi managed to slice into the giant orc. The Knight of Christ landed a precise strike, dropping a monster. Within minutes, 3 enemy bodies hit the floor. Brave little Naomi sprinted for the pedestal. She skidded to a halt, staring up at the horrific, blood-soaked idol. Without turning, the cleric thanked the party for the escort. Now, it was her turn to solo. She shut her eyes and began the chant. I am Indra's arrow, the thunder of the Lord. Let my flesh become the salt of the earth, and let the divine enemy fall, she whispered. Takahashi stood paralyzed. He was glued to the sight of the fragile girl. She looked terrified, sweat pouring down her face. But she didn't break focus. Naomi never imagined the casting process would be this brutal. She looked down at her hands, shaking violently as she gripped the wand. Suddenly, her vision blurred. She felt like she was pixelating into nothingness. Her eyes went wide. Consciousness was fading fast. Naomi could already see herself passing out on the cold stone, ticking down her final seconds. She couldn't even explain why her body was trembling so hard. Then, a miracle happened. The hero stepped in to cancel the inevitable. He shielded the saint with his own body. Yukito asked softly, when you stared, death in the face, were you scared? The girl broke down, sobbing. She didn't have an answer. The hero gently placed a hand on her head to ground her. He told her fear was valid. Even Christ cried out in desperation before the end. Even he was terrified of dying. The words shattered her composure, and tears streamed down her face. Yukito smiled, asking, "Does that make him look weak to you?" The girl stammered, "As a saint, my only purpose is to sacrifice myself, to destroy God's enemies. I'm useless otherwise." The young man shook his head, insisting she had way more potential than just being a martyr. Hearing those words, a flicker of hope sparked in the devout girl's eyes. "A saint's gotta pray for salvation," Takahashi reminded her, his voice cutting through the panic. Tears streamed down the beauty's face again. She was completely shook. All these years sticking to the scripture. My faith was rock solid, living a righteous life. Naomi spiraled internally. But true prayer, it's when you're staring injustice in the face, and you totally surrender to the big guy's plan. Naomi dropped to her knees, putting her full trust in the party leader. Clasping her hands tight, she started praying like her life depended on it. Suddenly, the churchgoer realized she hadn't known squat about real prayer until this exact second. The whole room froze, jaws dropping. They watched a divine emerald aura erupt over the girl, obliterating the nasty red demonic mana in the air. The vibe shifted from hellish to heavenly, filled with a warm glow. That creepy statue started morphing, transforming back into a basic, boring stone. Miss Naomi popped her eyes open, staring at the pedestal in total disbelief. The demon idol was history. The hero gave her props. "See, you crushed it. Ask and you shall receive." Yukito quoted the scripture. He knew he needed exactly 2 keys to unlock the class change system. Key number 1, the priestess's prayer. Check. Key number 2, securing the deity's altar. Meanwhile, the rest of the guild was barely holding the line against the horde. Usually trying to switch classes mid-fight is a death sentence, Takahashi thought, analyzing the chaos. He knew the altar was technically in enemy territory, but a crazy plan was brewing in his mind. But hey, main characters are the exception to the rule, right? This had to work. He triggered the class change. The system started scanning the zone. Who owns this turf, humans or monsters? Ding, analysis complete. Result, the altar is under human control. Game on. A whole new menu popped up. He could pick his new class right here in the heat of battle. Option A, Berserker. Requirement, slay a boss-level enemy. Unlock skills, Giant Slayer, and Double Kill. Option B, Paladin. The tank who walks through toxic fog. Needs a karma score of at least 200. You gotta be an undead slaying machine for that one. But then, the system threw a curveball, the Jester. A total wild card. The system redacted the unlock requirements, keeping it a total mystery. Naomi was stunned that the system actually booted up inside a corrupted temple. "It's all thanks to your prayer," the hero told her, giving credit where it was due. She pointed at the screen, practically yelling, "It's a no-brainer, pick Paladin and be my personal guardian." She went on about how Paladins have op heals and maxed out defense stats. It's a super rare class, and few people have it. The saint was practically begging him to take the meta pick. "Nah," he replied. "I don't do the whole servant of God thing." He rejected the Paladin class instantly. Then he made a move that left Naomi completely flabbergasted. Takahashi thrived on chaos. He hated following orders. Class change confirmed. A golden light exploded around him as Yukito closed his eyes, downloading the new data into his brain. He picked the Jester, obviously. A wicked purple mark etched onto his face. Naomi screamed, totally losing it. Why would you pick the absolute trash tier class out of all of them? Even in his past life, literally nobody touched that profession. Jester was ranked number 1 on the do not pick list. Every skill relied on RNG and pure luck. Everyone who tried it failed miserably because they didn't get the meta. But Yukito, after running the numbers, he realized a gambling build was exactly what he needed. Finally, the Jester's hidden ult was revealed. Skill unlocked. Brilliant flash. He turned to Naomi. "I'm gonna need a buff stat." The priestess scrambled for her staff. She stood up and channeled her divine power, reactivating her prayer. The hero did the math first. The buff boosts attack power and crit damage. Second, his Holy Assassin title adds a 30% damage bonus against undead. Third, Crushing Blow stacks massive crit multipliers. He was banking everything on this new skill. Brilliant flash. The demonic spirit, still lingering in the statue and buffing its minions, glared at its opponents. No hesitation. He popped the flash. The system pinged an alert. Next attack has a 5 to 10% chance to deal 10 times damage. Duration, 1 hour. Takahashi's sword erupted in flames. You could practically smell the terror radiating off her. Yukito caught that flicker of pure panic in the demon's eyes. She knew it was over. She desperately flared her aura for defense, but it was too little too late. Yukito launched himself skyward, ready to rain down hell. Mid-air, he dropped the coldest line imaginable. Ever heard the stories? History loves a slave who ascends to a king. Time seemed to freeze. He could see his own reflection staring back from the idol's terrified pupils. Then boom, he brought his blade down with world-ending force, connecting square with the monster's skull. The impact was insane. The stone statue didn't just break, it completely disintegrated into dust and rubble in seconds. Sticking the landing with a smirk, he announced the new reality. History wasn't just meeting a king, it was meeting the jokers. The ones crazy enough to slap the gods in the face. Naomi stood there totally, shook her face, a mix of awe and confusion. The squad went wild. With the boss monster deleted, cleaning up the remaining mobs was going to be a walk in the park. No boss meant no backup for the demons. The church defenders felt that momentum shift and got their second wind. Mercenaries and believers charged in unison, absolutely bulldozing the remaining enemies to reclaim the temple. Minutes later, done deal. Silence fell over the hall as everyone stopped to gasp for air. 0 casualties. A flawless victory. But while the team celebrated, Lady Naomi was still processing the sheer insanity of what just happened. She stood frozen, trying to keep it together, until a sudden shift in the atmosphere made her whip her head around. Golden light flooded through the windows. Meanwhile, Takahashi, swapping back to his signature jester mask, looked pretty proud of his handiwork. Ping, the system went crazy with notifications. Defeating Baal's clone unlocked a wicked new title, Killer of Dark Gods. The stats were juicy, a flat 50% damage buff against undead. His rank leveled up, and that basic crushing blow skill, it evolved into absolute destruction. Talk about a glow-up. He was so busy nerding out over his stats, he completely ignored the priestess. When he finally glanced up, he caught Naomi tearing up again. But these were happy tears. The undead were toast, and humanity had officially reclaimed the holy ground. The massive doors creaked open, letting the blinding outside world pierce the gloom. Sunbeams smashed through the stained glass, bathing the dark hall in a kaleidoscope of neon colors. Our hero soaked in the vibes, but the little church caretaker looked like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Warriors grinned, watching the sunlight dance off their blades. Mission accomplished. The evil spirits were evicted. But just as everyone relaxed, a voice broke the silence. 3 stragglers walked in looking confused. Everyone, good Takahashi, hit them with a casual, "Yep, we handled it. You guys been chilling here the whole time." One guy sheepishly admitted he couldn't join the fray. "We tried to cover the rear," he mumbled. Another piped up. "We radioed the guild for backup though." Clearly, that was unnecessary. The main squad had already cleared the stage with S-rank efficiency. Adrenaline fading, Yukito felt the crash. Honestly, just giving us a ride back would be clutch right now. But then the adventurer with the unique haircut pointed out something they couldn't ignore. Yukito looked over to see a row of knights on their knees. Turns out these cowards tried to bail mid-fight. The outside guard had tackled the deserters. Takahashi glanced at Naomi. "Your house, your rules. Church law says you deal with your own traitors right." Naomi bowed deeply to the guards, thanking them for catching the rats. The deserters were shaking like leaves, sweating buckets. The priestess's voice was ice cold. Justice would be served. Loyal knights surrounded the traitors, spear tips pressed against their armor. No escape this time. Takahashi stretched. "Welp, heavy lifting's done. You got this from here." He had to report back to the guild as soon as possible. Naomi nodded. She could handle the cleanup. Throwing up a lazy wave without looking back, the hero walked off into the sunset with his crew. "Wait," Naomi's voice stopped him in his tracks. Yukito paused. "What's up?" She hesitated, then asked. "You claim you're an atheist, but you know scripture better than us. Why did Christ choose a corrupt tax collector as an apostle? Even the Savior feared death, crying out in despair, right?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Why did my parents teach me that sinners are the ones who get saved?" She was desperate for answers. Takahashi just smiled, letting the question hang in the air. Finally, he dropped the bomb. Just old habits from a past life. He walked away, leaving her completely mind-blown. The hero flashed back to the days he'd hustle religious groups for grub. That's where he first encountered the holy texts. It was a simple transaction, fake some interest in the scripture, and the staff would slide him an extra ration. High-tier desserts would magically appear on his plate, though he'd never admit he was only there for the sugar rush. Outside the church, it was just another sunny afternoon with civilians strolling by, completely oblivious. No one had a clue about the drama that went down in the basement 15 minutes ago. Naomi was now alone, facing the fallout. She had to decide the fate of the coward knights who bailed on her. They were on their knees, ugly crying for mercy. Their regret looked legit. The men swore they messed up and begged Naomi to cut them some slack. The high priestess clasped her hands angelically and smiled. "Don't worry, the Almighty is big on second chances." A spark of hope lit up their eyes, but they were dead wrong. They were heading straight to a cell. to think about their life choices. Naomi believed that if you sin against the people, you get punished by the laws of men. No divine intervention here. More praise, maybe a sermon in the savannah, she muttered to herself, plotting. Word is the new prophet hails from East Africa. While she brainstormed their sentence, a suffocating purple aura flared around her. The traders watched, terrified. If your urges make you stumble, we simply cut out the source, Naomi beamed with a smile that screamed, psychopath. Suddenly, one of the knights was prepped for involuntary surgery. Once the gruesome work was done, she removed her headdress. She shocked her aides by declaring, now it's my turn to face judgment. The knights panicked, screaming, no way, my lady. Please rethink this. You're young and innocent. The men insisted the blame was entirely on them. They felt guilty for failing to purge the evil surrounding her. Naomi ignored them, stripping off her sacred robes. God doesn't care about age. I'm guilty of slacking off and not caring enough, she announced, now looking like a standard high schooler. She was quitting the high priestess gig to respawn as a level 1 student. Her defenders wept like toddlers losing their mom. They begged Miss Naomi to stay, but she ghosted them, stepping boldly out of the temple without looking back. Gazing up at the blue sky and white doves, she thought I need to touch grass and learn how the real world works. Naomi replayed the previous day's boss fight in her head, focusing on how that adventurer obliterated the monster. She realized she needed to intern under that good Samaritan. Mission objective, locate Yukito Takahashi. Meanwhile, our hero was blissfully unaware vegetation on his couch and gluing his eyes to the TV. A heavy knocking on the door broke his peace. He shuffled to the hallway to see who was disturbing his downtime. When he peered out, his jaw hit the floor. Naomi was standing on his porch like a door-to-door saleswoman. The blonde grinned, clutching a Bible. Do you have a moment to talk about God? The guy looked like his soul just left his body. He nearly cried, seeing the clergy at his door. He tried to slam it, but she glitched into his hallway before the latch clicked. Hey, don't blow me off. Let's chat, she chirped. Takahashi was shook. How did she move that fast? Naomi winked. Non-combat magic is totally legal topside. Yukito realized she just spammed a speed buff. Suddenly, his mom wandered out of her room, wondering what the racket was. Mom greeted the visitor warmly. The church girl didn't miss a beat. Hi, I'm Naomi Nameless, Yukito's junior. Stop capping, the hero cut in. She's a literal priestess, Mom. I'm a human being first, she shot back. The room went dead silent for a second. Mom narrowed her eyes, studying the guest. Wait, Naomi, haven't I seen your face somewhere? Before Naomi could answer, the mom's memory unlocked. That's it, you know her, Yukito. She's the volunteer from the food bank, Mom exclaimed. Remember seeing her running things on the street? I think she was the boss, even with all those adults around, the woman added. Naomi nodded politely. She confirmed it was part of her department's charity work. Yukito's eyes softened. These people had fed them when they were broke. He dropped his guard and invited her in. Mom went to brew tea while Yukito asked the million-dollar question, how did you get my address? She claimed she got the intel legit, but Yukito knew better. That blabbermouth Ito definitely doxed him. Once the tea was ready, he sat with his guest in the kitchen waiting for the pitch. He asked why she was really here. Naomi dropped the bomb. I want to join your party. The request stunned him, but he quickly recovered, glancing over at his mom. Yeah, I guess I can form a party now. He smiled, realizing that with his mom finally healthy and washing dishes happily, he was free to go on an adventure. She was literally vibing, humming a soft tune to herself. Yukito smirked, thank God no more spoon-feeding her that liquid breakfast. Time for real talk. He asked why she was so dead set on teaming up with him. Naomi clasped her hands, looking like a total saint in prayer, and dropped this poetic line about seeing a whole world inside him. I don't get it, he said, blunt, wiping her cheek. Also, you've got crumbs on your face. Naomi admitted she didn't fully understand it herself either. Honestly, not the solid answer Yukito was looking for. Typical cleric behavior, always speaking in riddles. Still, her words stuck with him. Bottom line, this was an opportunity he couldn't ghost. Eventually, he'd hit a dungeon boss that wouldn't go down in a one-on-one fight. Flashback to some solid advice he'd picked up along the way. Some zones are suicide missions without a squad. Right now, having a top-tier magic buffer was worth more than literal gold. Decision made. The young hunter accepted the offer. Takahashi extended a hand, catching the girl completely off guard. She clearly didn't think he'd fold that fast. I'm in, Yukito said, locking eyes. Let's give this duo thing a shot. Her face absolutely glowed. She beamed, grabbing his hand with both of hers. I'm counting on you, she whispered. Cut to a few days later. Empty hallway. Boom, the door swings open, framing Takahashi in the entrance like a boss. Before hitting the road with Naomi, he had a checklist. Step 1. Secure a fortress for the fam, since his fame put a target on his back. His mom and sister were his weak spot, and he wasn't taking any chances with their safety. Too many eyes were watching him now, and haters love going after family. Plus, Naomi had walked away from the church, and he had zero clue where she was crashing. The thought of her on the streets kept nagging him with some pretty dark scenarios. Time for the grim reality check. If he didn't make it back, he needed a backup plan. He got all the legal paperwork ready to ensure every cent of his loot went to his mom and sister. He'd never leave his girls hanging high and dry, ensuring they were set for life, even if he bit the dust. I gotta do this, not for anyone else, but for me. To finally kickstart this journey, Yukito stood on the roof, soaking in the view like a true main character. Suddenly, a voice cut through the wind. Sorry to keep you waiting. His family was there too, absolutely buzzing to see Naomi again. Takahashi cracked a genuine smile. There she was, his new partner. The hype for the upcoming grind was officially real. And just like that, the saga began. Teaming up doesn't fix the messed up world around me, Yukito thought grimly. Meanwhile, Naomi was already whining about the heat. Yukito cracked a joke, hoping the dungeon's AC was actually working today because the heat was brutal. But then a digital billboard snatched his attention. The headline screamed, "Hero hits level 70 in record-breaking time." Talk about a reality check, he was miles behind Uyama's stats. No matter how hard he grinded, the power gap was massive. Yukito considered the sheer speed of the hero's leveling curve, but honestly, he didn't let it live rent-free in his head. I'm staying in my own lane, he resolved firmly. Zoning out, he barely realized. He'd autopiloted all the way to the guild reception. Flashbacks hit him memories of being a total NPC, stuck at the bottom of the food chain, weaker than everyone else. The trauma reel played in his head, one ugly scene after another. Snap back to reality. Yukito was standing on the warp pad, ready to launch. A grin tugged at his lips. He was hungry for the XP. He was going to milk every second of this run. Materializing on a lush, vibrant field, Takahashi beamed at the familiar scenery, while Naomi scanned the area on high alert. White slimes bounced through the tall grass ahead. The cleric offered to cast a speed buff on him, but Yukito waved it off. Nah, let me solo them, he requested. Naomi nodded, and instantly 3 slimes drew aggro and lunged. My luck stat is basically a cheat code, he thought, smirking. As he unsheathed his blade, he remembered. His true ability, absolute manipulation of probability. With one clean sweep, he deleted all 3 mobs, and 3 rare tier items instantly dropped into his inventory. Gotta manage this loot properly, he mused, inspecting his edge. Suddenly, a voice cut through the air. Still grinding, as always, huh? Wait, you're the guy from the Death Hopper raid. Yukito clocked the face immediately. The warrior was grinning way more chill than their first intense meeting. I'm still rocking the gear you gave me, the stranger said, voice full of hype. Naomi looked at Yukito like he was a saint, but he shrugged it off. Just doing what had to be done. He asked the guy how the dungeon clearing was going. Slow motion, the man admitted. Actually, I respect as a blacksmith. Hit my level cap as a fighter. He'd maxed out his potential. Yukito nodded. I feel you. Adventuring isn't just about DPS and swinging swords. The former warrior pulled up a map, dropped a pin on his new shop, and told Yukito to slide by whenever his gear needed fixing. Takahashi promised he'd visit right after this run. I'll be waiting, the man insisted. VIP treatment guaranteed. He looked at Yukito like he was his personal savior, overflowing with gratitude. Yukito flashed a smile as he walked away, genuinely stoked about the interaction. If I gave him a reason to start a new game plus, then unlocking the retraining temple was worth it, he thought, feeling like a boss. The party pushed forward to the sanctuary. With the real grind ahead, Naomi and Yukito stood before the nun. Stepping into the glowing arcane circle etched on the floor, the woman clasped her hands, whispering a chant. Moments later, the warp activated and they vanished into light. No fear, just vibes. They rushed toward the unknown with grins plastered on their faces. Spawning on the next floor, the duo kicked open the doors and sprinted out. The terrain here was a whole different biome compared to the last zone. Immediately, Yukito ran into a tank-class warrior. He apologized for the delay, asking how long the group had been loitering. The 4-man squad, including a female adventurer, was just hyped to see him. We just got here ourselves, one replied. Yukito bowed respectfully, hoping to learn some strats from you guys. Whoa, you're the god's enemy slayer, one of them blurted out. You don't need to bow to us, Yukito tried to play it cool, claiming it was just RNG. Luck doesn't kill bosses like that, the knight countered. Takahashi wasn't used to this level of clout, and looked a bit flustered. After a quick strategy meeting, the entire raid party moved out. Game faces on. The boss was waiting. A massive death scorpion. An S-tier threat with lethal poison. Yukito shouted a warning to watch out for the venom. Even if luck is random, I'm the one pulling the trigger, the thought flashed through his mind. One adventurer charged the beast first, instantly receiving a luck buff from Yukito. The second fighter followed up, getting the same boost. Takahashi wasn't about to get carried though. He dashed into the fray. Drawing his blade mid-sprint, he adjusted his grip for maximum impact. Launching himself off the ground, Yukito went for an aerial strike. The scorpion's carapace looked impenetrable, practically immune to sword damage, but the squad moved at godspeed, syncing their attacks perfectly. Slicing through claws and tail alike, our boy desperately wants to convince himself this raw power is his own grind, and not just some borrowed cheat code. Cut to a bit later, the squad is recharging their batteries at a lush oasis, a rare gem in the middle of the scorching wasteland. Naomi whips out a thermos, actually sharing a health potion with a random adventurer. Look at her fighting those antisocial urges one drink at a time. Yukito's mind is made up time to level up his social game beyond just family. But while they're deep in the chat, the crew gets caught lacking, completely missing the nightmare, barreling toward them at Mach speed. A colossal brown dragon crashes the party, looking for a human-sized snack. Our power couple doesn't hesitate, they spring up, ready to smoke this beast. Naomi's staff materializes the crystal pulsing with instant energy, while Yukito launches himself skyward, surging with god-tier power thanks to his girl's buffs. He winds up for a single, devastating slash, and clean cleaves the dragon's skull in two. Game over. The monster is deleted before it even knows what hit it. The bystanders are absolutely shook by the rookie's display, as Takahashi touches down flawless victory, 0 damage. With these insane luck stats, I'm actually gonna make it. The hero thinks, smirking with total confidence.